Hey, very good morning to you. Welcome along. Just gone, what is it, 6:02. It is Tuesday, the 3rd of February. Where did January go? You're welcome. It is, of course, Talk Breakfast. It's the home of Alarm Clock Brits. It's where the nation comes to speak. It's your show. God, there's so much in the news today. Whatever you're doing, if you're already on the road, on the way to work, maybe on the way back from a night shift, trying to get the kids up, rushing around, you're very welcome. We want your input on the show. Get those voice notes in nice and early to Christian. He's got a great jumper on. 0344 499 1000. And, of course, as ever, throughout the morning, your text message is 87222. God, you take 2 days off and the world goes mad. This Mandelston story you're waking up to is not going anywhere. Police overnight confirming they will review allegations that the Dark Lord himself committed a criminal offence by leaking sensitive Downing Street emails and inside information to the paedophile Jeffrey Epstein. This is whilst he was a cabinet minister who was brought back under pressure by Gordon Brown in 2010 as the business secretary, the trade secretary. There is now belief, we don't know whether it's alleged or not, much belief that he leaked information like insider trading. I don't want to, you know, this is an opinion. I think this man has been winding people up and getting away with it for years, and I think the world is about to come crashing down on Peter Mandelson. It will not go away. Pretty Richard Starmer, by the way, have you read that? He says he should be kicked out of the House of Lords. Mandelson resigned the other day from the Labour Party. Now, the very man who made him the US ambassador, the very man who apparently did all the checks and didn't know all of this, is now saying he should be kicked out of the Lords. We'd love your opinion on that. The Epstein story continues. Loads about Andrew. Royal sources piling pressure on him to come clean. We've got the Clintons overnight testifying or agreeing to testify to Congress. Sarah Ferguson, some of the stuff, some of those emails about the daughters. I read a really interesting article at the weekend that said Princess Eugenie and Beatrice will have no option but to publicly disown their parents very, very soon. I'll stick my neck on the line, Alarm Clock Brits. I think you will see Peter Mandelson and potentially Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor facing criminal charges very, very soon. Love your thoughts on that. 0344 499 1000, text to 87222. And if you're waking up, slight sniffle here, thinking, oh, I might need to go and see the doctor. Well, don't worry. Junior doctors have voted to keep striking until the summer. We've talked about this. This is the group, the BMA, that got 28% the minute Labour got into power 18 months ago. They say that we've had not enough. We basically want more, and we will continue to hold a gun to the forehead of Wes Street in the health sector in the Labour government unless we get our way. Many people will say that the BMA is politically very left-wing and has its own agenda. Love your thoughts on that. 0344 499 1000. More migrant madness. Couple of stories overnight that'll send you crazy. An Albanian thief has escaped deportation after telling a judge who bought this, "My husband made me steal. Please don't send me back. It was my husband's fault." OK, you can stay. And an Egyptian small boat migrant jailed for raping a woman told his lawyer, I don't mind what time you give me in this country, just don't send me back. The jails here are a bit nicer than living in Egypt. So there you are. That's the madness that is, or rather the soft touch that is, the United Kingdom. My favourite story of the morning, a landlord, it's brilliant, Chris Garzarian, I hope I've got that right, who runs the Green Dragon in Hertfordshire, has named a beer as Rachel Thieves. In protest at Chancellor Reeves' tax raid on pubs. Apparently, it's described as very bitter, the most expensive thing in the bar, and when you ask for a pint of Rachel Thieves, all that comes out the tap is water, which just about is brilliant. Right, 87222, start your message with the word talk. Great lineup today as well, including we'll keep our eye on that Gorton and Denton by-election in Manchester this morning. The Reform candidate Matt Goodwin here, other candidates from all the parties, including the plumber from the Green Party at some point in the next couple of weeks. But we'll start by saying a very good morning to the man who, last time I saw him, was out for lunch with Kemi Badenoch. Promoted? We're not sure. A very good morning. How are you, Matt?
All good. How's it going, Jezza?
Good, man. Yeah, well, went to Portugal, saw my son, who's warm weather golf trading out there. Thrashed me. Brilliant.
Topped up the tan?
No, it rained. It was actually worse than the United Kingdom. And here's the thing. Got a text message a couple of hours after we landed saying, this is the Portuguese government, beware of flooded roads and take care. Do they do that in England? Probably not. Let's get to it, mate. On a serious note, police overnight reviewing allegations that Lord Mandelson, who'd had more comebacks than Frank Sinatra, committed a criminal offence by leaking sensitive Downing Street emails and inside information to the paedophile Jeffrey Epstein. It's in every paper, front of the Times. Police look into Epstein leaks from Mandelson. What's your take?
Well, first up, I think the Mail should be apologised. Anybody who's having their breakfast this morning, looking at a picture of Peter Mandelson in his tighty whities. Ugh.
Yes.
It's not what we want to wake up to today.
Labour's Dark Lord now faces a criminal inquiry. There he is in his white underpants. That was included in yet more Epstein emails over the weekend. Extraordinary.
But I mean, who would have thought it? A guy who was sacked 3 times by Tony Blair, who was found to be taking out dodgy loans, who was dishing out passports left, right. Who would have thought a guy with such a sound background would be doing such a thing? And then now this allegation, the idea that he's handing out sensitive information. The allegation he's handing out sensitive information while his husband's receiving thousands of pounds from the guy. The entire thing completely stinks. The Epstein story sounds like something somebody made up. It's so bizarre, so vile, that you just... It operates on a different planet, doesn't it? Operates on a different planet.
I read a lot over the weekend that said that this guy has somehow managed to fall and come up every single time. You're right, he was sacked from the government initially for a fraudulent mortgage that he'd taken a loan out, Geoffrey Robinson, the old MP. Then he was brought back, then he was sacked for organising passports for business people who shouldn't have had them. There is a feeling, is there not, I suspect, amongst certain people that this guy's had this coming for a long, long time, because he was the master behind New Labour, and he's probably dished a lot of dirt and done a lot of things. But, I mean, this is serious. Apparently, I read also last night, Gordon Brown incandescent with rage because he knew nothing about this, that this guy had been leaking sensitive information. This is a criminal act, if proven, isn't it?
It definitely so. The scary bit is the fact that the guy's got away with it for so long. Just time after time. But he also, I mean, you always say not judging a book by its cover. You always, oh, he was such a nice bloke, what a surprise. He is a creepy guy.
I've never met Mandelson.
He's a creepy guy. You watch him for 5 minutes on the telly and think, doesn't seem like a pleasant chap.
But can we bring...
story after story after story, he's just a wrong-un from
Bill from
start
Romsey says, I see the police are investigating the Dark Lord, but I bet he has dirt on everybody and will bring them all down. Wait, can't wait, get the popcorn ready.
True.
He's definitely been one of those people, hasn't he? Valerie from Norfolk touches upon it's time for all of Labour to go. So much corruption. Surely the country deserves better. Valerie, there's an issue there, isn't there, about Keir Starmer? Again, I actually have gone 10 minutes without mentioning him. This is a man who knew this guy, had made all of these mistakes and made him his US ambassador.
The background checks were done. He knows what he's about. He knows he was sacked 3 times. Like, what more do you want? Do you know how many he has more lives than a cat? It's disgraceful.
And now Starmer is saying he should be kicked out of the House of Lords. Absolutely should be kicked out of the House of Lords. He should be, I think, prosecuted. I think
most
it's an
definitely so.
Absolute
if he is
outrage.
found, if it comes out that he has actually been... Money's been changing hands and he's
insider trading, in effect.
Sensitive information, government-sensitive information. It's just wrong.
Morning, Jez. Teflon Pete. He knows where the bodies are buried. He must do otherwise. How come he's continued to get away with it for so long? Please don't put him in charge of breakfast clubs. I mean, it's true, isn't it? Loads of people. Rachel this morning. Jez, do you know what winds me up more than anything about this whole Mandelson situation? If this had been a Reform or Tory guy, you'd have never heard the end of it. This is Labour protecting itself. Tony Gannon, the royal family and the establishment we brought down by Prince Andrew and Lord Mandelson. They must have known before they stripped Andrew of his titles and threw Mandelson out. I literally am not a fan of Emily Mathis at all. I don't know her. I'm not being disrespectful. I saw something a couple of hours ago on the way up that I really agree. She said, I suspect the King threw him out of Royal Lodge and stripped him because he knew what was coming, and I should think the Labour Party will do exactly the same. Let's bring it on to Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor. I mean, Royal sources overnight piling pressure on him to come clean. The Clintons have agreed to testify. This Epstein thing will not go away. I've said so much about Andrew and Fergie. I think he's an obnoxious, entitled, arrogant prig. OK, I have a little bit of info because of the old man used to work for the royal family, but this is a terrible, terrible look, and it's not getting any better. You see, though, the elites of the country linked with these guys, and it's not, oh, he's linked with him. He might have gone for a pint with him once. There's pictures of them running around in their duds, doing all sorts of things with these young people. It's terrible. What's it is duds? Absolute underwear. Like, it stinks. It stinks, but it's not as if it's, tenuous link.
No. Well, you saw the pictures of Andrew with that young girl, just beyond the pale. And bad that you would assume it couldn't.
And emails of invites to Buckingham Palace after he'd been released for a conviction of soliciting underage girls. Her begging emails saying, "Did you see one at the weekend? Marry me, and please can you lend me £20,000?" And again, Emily Mathis, I'm going to give her credit here. She said that there comes a moment now for those two girls. I mean, some of the emails, apparently she took them at the age of 8 and 7 to see him after he'd been released. I have a great deal of sympathy for you, Janie and Beatrice. You might not. Tell me what you think. They're going to have to come out and they're going to have to publicly disown their parents pretty bloody quickly, because this is not going anywhere. I'll stick my neck further on the line and everybody will laugh at me. I think Mandelson and Andrew will end up being forced to testify and they will be prosecuted. And I think we could, for the first time in our history, see an ex-member of the royal family in prison. There's too much, isn't there?
You would assume if you didn't have the evidence, if it wasn't there in black and white, if there wasn't images of this stuff's captured, you would assume it was some nutty conspiracy theory, because it's that dark, it's that vile, it's just beyond what anybody would imagine.
Can I throw something else in for you, alarm clock Brits, right? I read this, tell me if I'm going mad, that they believe, and you're right, it becomes like this story, like a conspiracy theory, that this might well be that Epstein was part of being on the payroll of the KGB to get information. Suddenly how did this man that was just a financier have all of this money to get information on presidents and members of royal families? Because his influence was, in essence, he owned a Caribbean island and offered people whatever they wanted. Where did he get the money from?
Well, the allegations there that he's dishing out dosh and getting sensitive government information in return. It clearly does work. If you have money, you can make things happen.
This is Mike on Mandelson. Morning, Mikey.
Morning, Jezza. Firstly, I'd like to say lovely to have you back. Now, moving on straight into business, I think I have to commend everybody in this country who's on the common sense side, because they must have the patience of a saint. I'm ready to blow my lid. Absolutely ready for it. And I'm sure you are. I really, truly believe that this year is the opportunity to have a real clean out of the trash, the utter hypocritical trash. And let's try, as a nation, to join together and get that pen to paper and get all these bleeps out. Great show, buddy.
6:15. I mean, there's so much about the establishment, isn't there? I mean, Karen in Newcastle, take Lord Voldemort's peerage away, then let him and Andrew face the police. I think when you look at how deep and dark this could be, I mean, you're sitting there and I'm sitting here, and it's difficult to put into words. We are saying that a Labour minister, right, sorry about the pants, right, might well have passed insider information of our government to his paedophile mate, who, by the way, at that point had already been convicted and released. We're saying that the king's brother, right, would ring him and say, "Oh, send that Russian girl over," and his wife would be begging him for money. Heard about the baby story? Apparently there's a secret love child. I mean, this is Jeremy Kyle all through. They reckon, I'm being completely serious, they reckon that, can you imagine? I mean, it's so mad. It's so mad, as you said, that it's almost unbelievable.
This was our ambassador to the US. I mean, what does this project to the world? That our royal family, the guy who we made ambassador to the US, senior member of the government, it's just, yeah.
And Martin makes a point, and I'm going to put my hands in the air. I've known Fergie years, right? And I mean that. Morning, Jez. Fergie took her girls to see Epstein after his conviction. Who in their right bloody mind would do that? She is just as complicit as her old man. I completely agree. I mean, there was enough at the beginning when people were saying, weren't they, you know, we didn't know the depth of his depravity. But to see those emails after the guy has been released, and you made about Mandelson. Whilst, I mean, again, this article at the weekend said, how did he afford the £8 million house in Regent's Park that's now worth 20 million? And why at that exact moment was his boyfriend, right, begging for 10 grand to take part in a physiotherapy course, which Epstein paid for. So 8 million on a house? Was it a dodgy mortgage? I've no idea.
I imagine there's more to come, and hopefully, if this is the case, hopefully prosecutions.
Do you think prosecutions?
I mean, it absolutely reeks, doesn't it? It reeks. And it's there, the fact that those emails exist, it's in black and white, it's not hearsay, it's not some chit-chat. It's a fact.
David in Essex says, not David Essex, morning, Jeko, do you think that Starmer should apologise to the Donald for sending such a liability to America? Probably. Jez, Andrew won't testify because as a non-American he cannot use the Fifth Amendment. Can you be forced to go to America and contest?
I'm not sure, actually.
It's a really interesting one, if anybody knows the answer to that. Can he be subpoenaed by Congress, or would the law not stand in this country? Keith in Oswald Street, Jez, Starmer was warned by MI5 not to make Mandelson our ambassador to the US. Similarly, they warned him not to approve the new Chinese embassy. But, as ever, says Keith Alderton, he ignored the advice twice. Yes, Starmer's, this is all over Starmer.
It's the worst possible game of I told you so, isn't it? Oh, we shouldn't open that spy hub in central London. Oh, what a surprise. In a few years' time, when it comes out, the same with this. He was told by senior civil servants not to do this, and it's come home to roost.
But isn't there, without getting conspiratorial, isn't Starmer's chief civil servant or sidekick Morgan McSweeney? And he's very close to Mandelson, isn't he? So this won't look... But you do... I go with that text. How much dirt has Mandelson got on everybody? That's... I mean, he must have
Well, his tentacles are all over the Labour Party.
How?
All of these characters are linked to him in one way or another. It's horrendous. Well, Wes Streeting, you saw the imagery of Wes Streeting. The guy who stood against me in the general election, Wes Streeting's partner, used to work for Mandelson. He's like... Mandelson is linked to all characters in the Labour Party. He's got tentacles everywhere.
Do you think his power with this? Front page of the Mail, Labour's Dark Lord now faces a criminal inquiry. Is this the last we'll see of Mandelson in politics, in your mind?
Never say never. We might have said that under Blair when he was sacked for the third time. We might have said this guy's not coming back, but here he is.
It's just extraordinary. And all those people that pontificated at the time. Why has Blair said nothing? What about bloody Alistair Campbell, who's full of it, isn't he? Well, he hasn't said a word. Are we going to an ad break with The Voice? No, are we up for it, Christian? 0344 499 1000 is the telephone number. Text to 87222. So much to talk about, but you are waking up to this astonishing story. It's on every paper. Labour's Dark Lord, Lord Mandelson, not for long, now faces a criminal inquiry, stands accused of committing the ultimate, leaking sensitive Downing Street emails whilst in power and inside information to the paedophile Jeffrey Epstein. You're also waking up to the news that Starmer suddenly has found some sort of correct position and gone, kick him out of the Lords. So I thought you gave him a job 6 months ago. Oh, yes, another great bit of judgment. Andrew, Fergie, talk about pressure. 6:20. Morning, Anna.
Morning, Jez. Anna, sorry. So, the Royal Close Protection and Security Forces would have reported exactly what and where Andrew was doing to our government and the royal family. Also, the same could be said for Mandelson. Everyone would have been aware of these gentlemen, these men's movements and exactly what they were getting up to. So why is nobody discussing this? That everybody in the palace would have been aware of Andrew's acts.
What on earth were our security services doing? For many, many years, people have known about this. We're meant to have a good liaison with the United States. Didn't anybody bring this to notice? Didn't anybody notice that he was dealing with Russians, Chinese, Israelis? What on earth is going on? What is the point of our Secret Service, I have to ask, if somebody in authority, the head of it, should be asked, what did you know, who did you tell, and why didn't anybody do anything?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 6:22. JK back on Talk Breakfast. Welcome along. Tuesday morning, you're waking up to, well, listen, it doesn't get any worse, does it? Lord Peter Mandelson, the self-styled Dark Lord, has, many believe, committed a criminal offence by leaking sensitive Downing Street emails and inside information to the paedophile Epstein. That's the challenge. What happens next? Starmer says kick him out the Lords. People are saying remove the title. Police... I do apologise if you're tuning in. There he is in his Y-fronts. I don't think you can trust a man in white Y-fronts with a slight grey tinge. Pictures all over every newspaper of this dodgy Dark Lord, who for years seems to have been going Matt Vickers from side to side in terms of people he knows. You say his fingerprints are all over the Labour Party. People saying this morning there will be a criminal investigation. Talk will obviously follow this story because it's going nowhere. The Labour Party made him the US ambassador despite concerns with MI5. Anna made a really good point on that voice note ahead of the break there. She said, what about close protection, royal security, the people that follow these people around? Just an opinion, Anna. People might disagree with me. What? Some bloke on 30, 40 grand a year who's a police officer paid to follow the royal family is going to say to his boss, do you know that, Andrew? Nobody's going to... They're nothing. It's a closed shop, isn't it, to be fair, Matt, right?
Yeah.
Really difficult. Jane, good morning.
Morning, Jez. Glad to have you back. You've got to bring the show back. Can you imagine? Epstein, lie detector test. Keir Starmer, lie detector test. The machine says, you lied. Morning.
I was thinking about a DNA test on the baby that allegedly Epstein's had. I mean, find the mother. You know where my mind... You see, after my life, you know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking Fergie might have had a baby with him. I'm just putting it out there, just a thought, you know. 0344 419 1000, text to 87222. So the Epstein thing will not go away, people. It's on every single front page. It's really important. We'd love your views on Mandelson, right? You know, Andrew, Fergie. Loads of you making the point, though, and I think this is really, really interesting, right? The establishment. John from Angus. This is a moment of reckoning, what's going on with the establishment in this country. This country needs to sort things out and not let people who have done disgraceful things get away with everything. We need a party to get into power to change things and make it fairer for ordinary people. And I want to take that point, Matt Vickers, because, you know, you're a Tory, you've got your views. I voted Reform last time. I have my views. The Greens are on the march. Don't even go there. But here's the thing. That silent majority I've always talked to you about, I think the unfairness of much, and I include Mandelson and Epstein in this, is beginning, quite rightly, to really grate with people.
I think seeing government behaving like that, people who have a history, as long as their arm, of doing the wrong thing, ended up with these quirky appointments as ambassadors to the US. It stinks. But actually what's bothering people this morning who are getting up and going out of work and grafting like dogs all day is the fact that the system isn't working for them. They're paying more and more and more in tax. The people who aren't working are getting more and more and more in benefits. Everything's going wrong on that front. Whatever we might think about some of these stories, actually people just want to be able to get on in life. They want a government that they can trust and rely on. And they want the system to just work.
Don't they want
do the right thing? You should take cash on it.
Don't they want fairness as well? I keep bringing it back, that word fairness. We've talked about, we'll do some stories in a minute about illegal migrants, and I think for years people wouldn't talk about it because, oh, that's racist. But suddenly, when hard-working Brits can't afford their bills and they're doing nothing but grafting, and they see others being favoured, and I'm going to include this Epstein thing, and I mean this. This is my opinion. It's like the grooming gangs. I'm embarrassed as a Brit to say that I don't know whether local, national, everybody has covered up the rape of innocent young white British girls. Now, whatever part of the institution, police, local authorities, local MPs, I don't know. That's a national disgrace. This, if a man who was sacked 3 times, okay, has sold secrets of our government to a paedophile in return for loans to his boyfriend or allegedly, I don't know, monies, or he says he's got no idea where the money that was wired to him has come from, he should go to prison. Similarly, if a prince, no longer a prince, can abuse his position, use the royal family and his daughters, who I feel really sorry for, and his odious wife, and yes, I've met her on several occasions and I would never have imagined, right? Never have imagined that that was the case, right? These people, if they do not feel the force of the law, it will be another example for hard-working normal Brits to go, it's wrong, it's unfair, the system's wrong.
Terrible, evil things happen when good people do nothing. Like, how have they got away with it for this? Look, this is not like a few weeks ago and he's been caught out. This is years ago. This bloke's been living the high life on the back of this stuff, and it's completely unacceptable.
It is. Andy, good morning.
Morning, Jezza. Matt in Warrington. So the Dark Knight, Mandy Mandelson, he thinks he's above everyone. He thinks he's above the law. He thinks he can do whatever he wants. He thinks that everyone below him is inferior to him. But he's got more skeletons in his closet than a graveyard. But you've got to question Starmer, haven't you? He appointed him. They all knew what a bad egg he is, what a wrong 'un. And Andrew, I'd just throw him in the Tower of London and forget about him. Anyway, great to have you back, Jez. Speak to you soon.
Good morning. Yeah, listen, I mean, I think a lot of people are going to feel like this is interesting. Chris, morning, Jez. Morning, Matt. Last night on Channel 4 News, when I asked if the Mandelson situation was horrifically damaging to the Labour Party, Dame Emily Thornberry, surprised she took a dame, it's horrifically damaging for all parties. Isn't it funny when the Tories were embroiled in sleaze, it was never claimed by Labour to be damaging to all parties? Just imagine if this was reform, says Chris. Tracy, morning, gentlemen. Everybody talking about the Chinese spying, yet we had the dark, vile Mandelson committing treason with inside information. He is contaminated, so are the Labour Party. Can I just say about Epstein, right? Overnight, what did we read as well? The Clintons have agreed to testify in Congress. Now, allegedly, Congress can't summon Andrew Mountbatten Windsor because he doesn't live there. I don't know about Mandelson. But I've always thought, having been on the receiving end a couple of times, that the British press can be particularly hard, right? But I will also say, with my hand on my heart, that one of the greatest things about the British press, led by, and I mean this, by newspapers like The Sun and The Times, and I'm not just saying that because we're part of the same organisation, but it's true, right? Telegraph as well, is that actually in these instances, when people want fairness, this won't go away, mate.
Yeah.
They are going to bring Mandelson and Andrew Mountbatten, not down, but to have to face up to their detractors.
Yeah, without
and I think
the front
the
pages
least
of these papers,
that they should do.
Without the front pages of these papers, he'd be getting away with it for another few years, probably. It'd be dusted away, brushed off, and carried on. He's got to be held to account now. And do you know what? Let's see what the police investigation does.
Richard says, I don't know if I'm missing something here, but the Dark Lord, power for friends, blackmail. Yeah, I think there's so much to be said. And other people, are there other people to be embroiled in this? I mean, if you're, I suspect that there's a lot of people, I said this when the Epstein files were originally, by the way, can I ask a really stupid question? How, the 3 million emails, how did they come to be in how did the Department of Justice in America get them? No idea?
The thing is, you talk about this sort of dark operative, but I've never known quite how he got into office anyway. He's seen as this sort of dark arts monster who does achieves things behind the scenes. But
he pees in the street.
Well,
he pees in the street.
I've never heard anybody go, Mandelson, he's the guy who went into government and he did X, Y and Z. I've never seen anything positive come off of Mandelson. I've never met him. I think seeing him in action on the telly is enough for you to realise there's something of the night about the fella. And now here we are. There most definitely is something of the night about this chap.
Epstein was just the front man. There are much more powerful people involved, says Pete. I'm convinced. This is, honestly, this is such a huge, huge story. Other news we'll cover, but if you want your opportunity to have your say, please do. 0344 499 1000. Will Mandelson, will Andrew have to testify? Will they face criminal charges? Fergie's charity closing overnight. She apparently homeless. Both of their daughters contemplating cutting them off. Soon as possible, if I was you. Shocking news. Closer to home, Times, again, page 1, great job. This is going to send me right over the edge. Junior doctors threaten strikes until summer after the latest ballot. Let's talk about the BMA. The BMA is an incredibly left-wing organisation. I hear that their whole idea and dream is to hold whatever government it is to task. But when the Tories, quite rightly, were thrown out of office, this organisation was given upwards of about 28% by Wes Streeting.
28.9%, 29%.
OK, who then said it's all sorted. Now, a year later, they're back, and they've overnight voted to keep striking until the summer. I bring it back to the unfairness issue. You can't see a bloody doctor for an appointment, but a migrant can see a private GP 3 hours after they arrive at their 4-star hotel. British people won't accept this anymore. I can't believe these junior doctors get away with this.
I must admit, I've never met anybody who had a 29% pay rise, but I'm sure that if I did meet someone who had a 29% pay rise, they'd be very bloody happy about it. They wouldn't come back asking for another 26%. These people are putting people's lives on the line. To those people who can't get their kids into hospital or their mother's waiting for an operation, this is why they're waiting. Wes Streeting told us he'd solved it all. He's dished out the dosh. It's all solved. There'll be no more strikes. Anybody with an inch of common sense knows that if you start throwing money at people every time they strike, suddenly they start striking more. There was minimum service legislation brought in that would have forced these people to do these things in a safe way. Labour scrapped it. They should be banned from striking. They are taking the P out of the British taxpayer. This is coming from all those people on the way to work this morning. That's where that pay rise has come from. Yet if those people want to go to hospital tomorrow, they're going to have to wait in an ever-increasing queue as a result of this.
It's really interesting to me. You said something there that I couldn't get my head around when Streeting was, pontificating a year ago and saying, I've sorted it. The Tories didn't go around the table. He didn't ask for anything in return for the 28.9%. And as you quite rightly say, if somebody says, do you know what, if you go and see your boss and you just say, I want 28.9% or I'm striking, he'll go, oh, they are then, Christian, they are, I have 28.9%. And then you're going to go, oh, that works. So a year later, you're going to go and say, if you absolutely, naivety at its best.
I want you to go into your gaffer today, ask for 29% and see what happens.
Well, listen, yes, possibly. I might try that. But it is frightening. And also, there's one thing about the BMA that I always want to ask, and you know more than me. Perhaps you've got an opinion out there. How representative is it of junior doctors? I see the militants lining up in their scarves and waving their placards, right? Most of them look like they haven't had a wash, let alone the fact they could carry out a medical procedure. But does it cover every junior doctor? I'm told not. I'm told that when they hold a ballot, the strike numbers are never that impressive. You said something there. Should they be allowed to strike? What out there, people, what do you think? Should junior doctors be allowed to strike? Maybe not.
Well, they're resident doctors now. You've got to call them resident doctors.
Why?
I don't know why, but they must prefer it. But the reality is that if you were in the prison service, if you're in the, we prevent other services.
Sorry, do you want to do that again? What did you say?
If you were in the prison service, if you're in the armed forces, we do not allow you to strike. No. We don't give you this sort of pay rise. There are other parts of the NHS. There are nurses out there working like dogs. When did they last see a 29% increase?
They got 5%. I've never been able to understand that, the temerity. Why would you call them resident doctors? They're not in residence. However, I'm going to shock alarm clock Brits and you, Matt, and the people through the glass, because I'm going to say that there is one occasion, if this was in an English hospital, that they might well deserve a pay rise. This is the greatest story, ladies and gentlemen. If you've got young ears, maybe turn the radio down and put your ear up against it. This is an unbelievable story this morning. Bomb disposal experts were called to a hospital in France after a live World War I artillery shell was found up a man's bottom. Yes, it was unexploded bum. I promise you the bum squad were called. It's Toulouse in France on Saturday. A source said he was in a state of extreme discomfort. You would be if you'd shoved a bomb at your backside. Having inserted a large object into his rectum, emergency surgery was carried out and the object was found to be an artillery shell dating back to the First World War. Worse still, it hadn't exploded, and so this is not made up. So bomb disposal agents had to be called to defuse the shell with the fire brigade standing by. Staff and patients were evacuated from the hospital, so there was a ream of people outside in the rain with their gowns on. The patient, a French national, I don't know why I've done that, is now expected to be interviewed by police as prosecutors contemplate legal action against him for handling Category A ammunition, according to an officer. Yeah. So this guy, this is absolutely true. Unexploded bum. The bum disposal expert, he literally had shoved a shell where the sun don't shine, and it was not exploded. So if you were a junior doctor in France and a man waddled into A&E with an unexploded shell up his arse, excuse my French, you'd probably deserve a pay rise.
I was thinking this was a really mad story, and then you said it was a Frenchman. I thought, maybe.
What are you trying to say?
What did he... I wonder what his excuse was. He fell and landed on it. I wonder what his sort of line was and what he was up to.
I told them in the office this morning a great story about which I can't do on air. I mean, and I'm not even brave enough to say, let's open the phone lines. I mean, that is just an extraordinary story. Can you imagine waddling into... The fact is it hadn't gone off and they had to evacuate. Can you imagine being on your knees, having that removed and it could have exploded?
It's another one of those crazy stories, though. Can you imagine on Facebook where everybody goes, oh, my God, A&E's been shut down because a man walked in with a... It would be just like, no, that can't be true.
But if that was England, right, the hospital would have been shut down, but the migrants would still have got to see a doctor whilst the bomb was going off. True story, that, Pete. Just a bit of light-hearted fun amongst a sea of misery. 22 minutes to 7 o'clock, you're waking up to the news, of course, that Peter Mandelson, Lord Mandelson, the self-styled Dark Lord, could indeed face a criminal investigation for allegedly leaking sensitive Downing Street emails and inside information to the paedophile Jeffrey Epstein. Sarah, Ferguson and Andrew further embroiled. Emails after he'd come out of prison for, trafficking young girls, dragging their daughters into this. Talk, Bill, you're doing it as well. What are our security services for? Surely they'd have known all about, Mandelson and Andrew's activities. Yes, mate, but think of it. Think of the establishment, Bill. Think of, like, the royal family. Think about Parliament. Some bloke going, oh, I saw that. Not a chance. Morning, Jez. I think that this Epstein has set them all up and is now laughing from the grave. Good show, says Elaine. Thank you. Hey, big dog, says Mark in Salisbury. Yet again, Labour buries bad news with more bad news. Tulip Sadiq found guilty, sentenced to 4 more years. Can she share a cell with Mandy? This is Tulip Sadiq. Get ready for this. You've had the unexploded bomb at your bum, or bum up your bum. That was their corruption minister, Tulip Sadiq, until she had to resign for corruption in Bangladesh, where she's now been... Look at the look on your face. Have you met Tulip Sadiq?
But only briefly in passing. But yeah, you've had... I mean, it's just scandal after scandal, hasn't it? You had the homeless minister who got tangled up in basically making his tenants homeless. You had Angela Rayner, the housing minister, done for dodging taxes around her housing. It's like constant, just one after the other. And then, well, there was the transport minister done for nicking phones, wasn't she?
No, not
one
Heidi.
thing after the other.
The one with pink hair. She lasted.
The pink hair, yeah, I can't remember what she's called. Hardy's the new one.
Yeah, she's quite scary. Dave, morning, Jez. Trouble is, the system protects people at the top. It's a mistake, an oversight. I wasn't told the whole facts, etc., etc. We've heard it all before. Dave in Aberdeen making a really salient point. Something has to change in this country for good. Mandelson, Andrew, Fergie, junior doctors, and a man with an unexploded bomb up his bum. Welcome to the Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show. Morning, Kitty.
Anyway, I just wanted to say Mandelson always has been a sleazeball, and don't forget, a mere few weeks ago, he was peeing in public after dining with George Osborne. If a Tory peer, or God forbid, a Reform MP, had been peeing in public, there would be relentless pressure through the media. But because it's this creep, it's just dropped. Nobody thinks anything of it. So anyway, that just shows you, really. It's just two-tier everything. Have a lovely day.
Thank you, Kitty. Did you notice what she said? If a Tory peer peed, if a Tory peed... It's true, isn't it? The Labour Party... I mean, I can almost remove Starmer from this, although his judgment on giving Mandelson the job. But then you wonder the pressure. And I've had a couple of texts from people saying, oh, you are concentrating on Mandelson. Yeah. Because this man's been sacked 3 times, has held the highest jobs in the land, has had the ear of several prime ministers, and it seems has given away state secrets and emails to a paedophile and already been arrested and put in jail for soliciting young kids. What does that say about the very fabric of almost everything we all are supposed to believe in?
The man is an utter rotter. Sacked 3 times. You know, like, oh, we're really surprised it's turned out that this well-meaning friendly...
You can be sacked and make a comeback.
As rotten as it gets.
You can be sacked
3 times.
and make a comeback. All right, that's fair enough. Talk breakfast, morning.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 17 minutes to 7. This is JK on Breakfast. You're waking up to the news of Peter Mandelson, the self-styled Dark Lord, could well face criminal charges, about time I say, for leaking sensitive Downing Street emails whilst a minister to the pedo Jeffrey Epstein. Morning, Dan.
Morning, Jeremy. It's Dan from Kent. It's obviously clear that Mandelson was up to no good with the release of the Epstein files. So why hasn't it not at least been suspended from the House of Lords? I know he's resigned from the government. Starmer seems to be still pussyfooting around in getting rid of him, unless, of course, Mandelson has dirt of his own, which could bring down this government. It's interesting. I'll get the popcorn.
I think you should. Steve, just reacting to that extraordinary story, the unexploded bum. The story is just a bit light-hearted fun here. The bomb squad in France called after a man gets a World War I shell that was unexploded stuck up his backside. He says there was a similar case in England where a man was rushed to hospital. Several toy plastic horses were involved, but the police and the hospital have released a statement saying that he's in a very stable condition. I know, it's got 7. Honestly, I love the people that listen to this. Kate Heiner, good morning. Was it the bomb squad or the bum squad? Yes, Kate on the Wirral, we've done that, but it's very good. Le Bombardier, says Pete. Le Bombardier. I love it. I love it. Hi, Heather. Peter Mandelson faced being questioned by police. Andrew and Sarah faced being disowned by their daughters and lose seeing their grandchildren. It's an utter disgrace. They should hang their heads in shame. Our country needs a kick up the backside, not a World War bomb. Let's go to the Mail, page 4. 2 stories domestically that I know you would want to cover, and so do I, Matt. Explain this to me. Labour accused of paying millions to delete patients from NHS waiting lists. Why don't they just spend the money on trying to do something to get the lists down? What is this?
It's nuts, isn't it? So this is them verifying the list. So people who didn't turn up, decided they didn't want to come anymore, decided, you know, whatever it might be, they're paying people £33 a hit to delete these people from spreadsheets. 33 quid to hit a line out of a spreadsheet. People voted for shorter waiting lists, not shorter spreadsheets. It's ridiculous. If that money was actually spent treating people, we might see real waiting lists go down. That's what we want to see. We don't want to see numbers massaged. We want to see people actually getting the treatment. But we're now paying all these doctors 29% more. They're coming back for another 26%. The system is never going to work. You pay more and more and more, and you get less and less and less treatment for it. It's a nightmare. It is a nightmare.
I don't ever prepare what I'm going to do, but just very quickly on the back of that story, junior doctors threatening to strike, Labour paying millions to reduce waiting lists. We know that Wes Streeting has aspirations to lead Labour and in fact be the next Prime Minister. He's been all over this. He's the one who gave the junior doctors this ridiculous rise. He's the one who's massaging this. And worst of all, and I will say it every day until they drag me away, he's the one who thinks it's all right for 200 kids from bad backgrounds who haven't had a good start in life to be ploughed with puberty blockers to discover in some sort of experimental, sick way what that might be like. He's been a real letdown to me as Health Secretary, and I know Wes Streeting, and he won't come and talk to this station, and that's fine, but he has really got some stuff to do in his own department rather than dream of a bigger job, hasn't he?
Do you know what? I always believe that people should live as they want, do what they want, but the idea that you experiment on children with puberty blockers is entirely unacceptable. He is at the helm of that decision. He is the Health Secretary, and then he tells us that pay ever more in tax, but don't worry about it. I've stopped the strikes. I've given them a 29% pay rise. Nobody with an inch of common sense thought that that was going to solve these strikes. Anybody at home, you tell people we're going to dole out 29% to people who come asking, of course they're going to come and ask for
certainly
money.
not in the private sector. Mary in Canterbury, I am disgusted, Jez, at the junior doctors going on strike again. My daughter is a paramedic and she got a 3.6% pay rise and she doesn't believe in going on strike. These men and women are my heroes and do not get the recognition they deserve. Completely agree, Mary. Did a show once across the weekend in Birmingham with paramedics. The abuse is off the record, by the way. Total respect.
They go into homes in some of the most horrific situations,
Dreadful.
some of the most horrific people sometimes, taking all sorts of abuse.
Yeah, they are.
And they're getting 3%, while these guys are fighting. Having had 29% want to, it stuns me. It stuns me.
I agree, Pauline Crew. The resident doctors wanting a pay rise is a sign of the culture in this country. Wanting a pay increase before improved performance outcomes isn't a surprise. Doesn't guarantee better performance. The BMA, spoilt entitled brats. The government, instead of staying quiet, should come out and say you can have a pay raise after there is a clear improvement in performance of the NHS. That would get support from the public too. I would suggest that the support, if there is any, for junior doctors has ebbed away, wouldn't you?
They might have had it before the 29%. When they come back for another hit, it won't be there. I mean, there was no performance requirements put in place. When Wes Streeting handed over all of our money, all those guys who were going to work this morning, it's their money that they are paying in taxes to pay these guys these huge salary increases. At that point, when he negotiated that 29%, there was no performance requirement. No. They didn't have to jump through any hoops to get that extra cash.
Just turned up.
Doled it out.
Junior doctors are called resident doctors, Jez, says Paula, because that's what they're called in America. Right, well, I would say they're never resident in their surgeries, so they should be called, you know, non-resident doctors. Stephen, morning, JK. On the front page of the Mail, slightly sick picture of Peter Mandelson in his underpants. He said, to me, it looks like a nappy, says Stephen Lincoln. It could well be a nappy, full of custard, and he could have a dog collar around his neck. I'm not going to go into why I made that analogy, but there we go. Paula, morning, Jez. Nobody is talking about the money that Epstein was given allegedly by Putin. I did. 40 minutes ago, I said there is a lot of increased belief. I read it at the week in KGB Honey Trap. How did a man who was simply a financier end up with billions of pounds and get into bed, it seemed, with presidents and kings and politicians and famous people across the world and have all of this on them, this tranche of emails and everything? What does that tell you? Do you not think it's somewhat deeper?
I think it's the stuff of conspiracy theory. You would think it was mad if there wasn't all the evidence and all the imagery to back it up. It is utterly nuts that these people at the top of society, these people who have huge privileges and opportunities, like Mandelson, given the opportunity to represent this country on the world stage, and that is who he is. He's been at it for years and he's got away with it for years.
Morning, Andy.
Morning, Jezza. Andy from Birmingham. I hope you're well. Glad to see you back, mate. The one question you've got to ask is why, and it's been reported, I don't know for certain, but why did Starmer overrule our intelligence services and appoint him as ambassador for America? That's got the main question. And also, I mean, I'm not a Conservative supporter anymore, but fair play to Kemi. She absolutely roasted him yesterday in that Commons after his speech. It was brilliant to see.
I think the royal family really need to address this. They've kind of pussyfooted around hoping the problem will go away. This is a national security thing here. The Russians and others had compromat on Andrew and others. They were clearly running all sorts of operations against leaders using that blackmail. And I think, you know, there is a very, very strong case, I think, also for a parliamentary investigation into his time as a trade envoy. And all the files that I've been trying to get for the last 5 years about that period, from 2001 to 2011, should be opened.
The UK on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
We I've got you going this morning, 6 minutes to 6. Welcome to Talk Breakfast. You're waking up to the news that Mandelson could have leaked sensitive information whilst in Downing Street, could face a criminal charge. Starmer says, kick him out the Lords. I thought you gave him a job as your ambassador, you whatever. Andrew Fergie, that Epstein story will not go away. Junior doctors, having got 28.9%, are going back on strike throughout the summer. Another story in the Mail, Matt Vickers. Explain this to me, more madness. Jobless families are set for a 25 grand tax-free windfall when the cap on the two-child benefit is lifted. What does that mean?
It's ridiculous. So today, legislation going through to remove the two-child cap. It is utterly ridiculous.
So stage of the effects is just have many kids and we'll pay for it.
Yeah, keep breeding. But the reality is that if you work, this government you are paying more and more in tax. If you don't work, you're getting more and more in benefits. 25 grand. People out there are sick and tired of paying ever more in tax and getting sod all for it. There are less police on the streets. We've seen what's happening with the NHS now. Money's being spent. We've seen these junior doctors taking home huge payouts. It's ridiculous, but the benefits thing utterly takes the mick. There are people out there who work who have to make choices about how many kids they can afford to have. If you don't work, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. The government, Keir Starmer, will hand you taxpayers' money. Those people who are going out grafting this morning, who are working like dogs to make ends meet, are paying forever more in benefits under this government. It absolutely stinks. And the only people who are going to do something about it are the Conservatives in Kemming.
It's really interesting, actually, the benefits, the whole benefits bill. We've said it before, a great concept. I thought a great concept, to help people who can't help themselves. Sadly, it's become, I think, an absolute joke. You're right. People who work are paying more tax for people not. And all the people who jump up and down are going, oh, that's awful. What are you saying? That you should get rid of it? There's a lot of feckless, lazy people who are taking advantage of a system that is draining the hard-working British taxpayer. That's a fact, isn't it?
It's meant to be a safety net. It's meant to be there to help you when times are hard. It's meant to be there to help you if you're unable to work. The reality is, all of a sudden, there's a huge number more people in this country who are sick, who are reliant on those who dare to go out and work. But then it's only going to get worse because more and more people are being put out of work by this country.
Is your seat Stockton-on-Tees?
Stockton West, yeah.
Oh, right.
Sunny
Morning,
Stockton.
Jez. Whilst I like Matt, it's a bit rich, isn't it, for my MP talking about unfair pay rises when them buggers give themselves one each year, says Ryan.
Well, we don't give ourselves a pay rise because we don't get to have a say on what we do or don't get paid. But I'm sure it's all on the internet how much we are getting paid and whatever increases that do come. I think it's linked to what the civil service get and it comes down the line or something.
It's not 29%, that's sure. Debbie, good morning.
Yeah.
I am in despair of this country and lost for words. I would retire to sunnier climes if I could, but unfortunately not. Matt Vickers, let's up the anchors. What does that mean?
Yeah. This is the mighty Stockton town.
Right, good. Could I just say, there was, of course, the story, the jokey story about the unexploded bomb up a Frenchman's backside that ended with him in casualty, if there are young ears around today. Tim in Bromley says, this French suppository addict brings a whole new slant to the word Arsenal. Brilliant, well done. Cliff in Berkshire, it strikes me that the junior doctors have a touch of Oliver syndrome. Please, Keir, can I have some more? Natasha, little ears, away from the radio. When I worked in the operating theatre, we had a man admitted who had a large, still vibrating something. And if you put your hand on his stomach, you could feel the vibrations. He was in a lot of pain.
I knew a guy who was a radiographer.
No.
I knew a guy who was a radiographer, and apparently it was a trend at one point in the northeast that people were sticking batteries up their back end. I mean, it was significantly smaller than what this French dude stuck up his back end, but it was a bit of a trend. I don't know if it's still a thing. If you're a radiographer, let us know.
Triple A. What does the A stand for? Gazin's thought, waiting for an operation. I'm a bricklayer. If I'm forced to stop working prior to the doctor's strikes, it'll probably end up costing the government in some sort of benefit to help me. And one less builder working. This country has gone completely mad. So to overview, Matty, the story that's just everywhere this morning, police agreeing to review allegations against Lord Mandelson, who allegedly has committed a criminal offence by seeking sensitive Downing Street emails and inside info to the pedo Jeffrey Epstein, whilst in his third role as a cabinet minister before he got sacked. Andrew Fergie, this story is going nowhere. It's dominating. Yes, we've got the junior doctors striking, we've got more migrant madness and all of that, but this is the story, isn't it, my friend?
We wait to see what the police have to say about it, because that's where we've got to get to. Now, this guy might finally actually be caught up with. He might be held to account for what he's been up to.
But can you see that really happening with Mandelson? Because he's a slippery bugger,
You've just got to hope. You've got to hope that these people eventually do get caught out. He's been out for, like, these allegations and this situation is not a new thing. It's not something that's just come out. These pictures are old pictures. This is a thing that's been going on for years. This bloke has got away with it. He's been our ambassador. He's had this huge privileged opportunity to represent our country abroad, and all the time he's had these skeletons in his closet. It'd be good if the guy finally gets held to account.
It'll be very interesting. We'll keep you updated on that. If you are of a slightly nervous disposition, I wouldn't look at the front page of the Mail, because there he is in his... What do you call underpants? Oh, it's on the screen now. What do you call
Duds.
Duds, that's very northern.
Budgie smuggler. It does look like a nappy, actually.
It could be that Mandelson's got a nappy on. The crew are absolutely studying it now. I've no idea. Right, listen, 7 o'clock on the way. Simon Danshuk, former Labour MP and Reform defector, on the way. Later on, Reform's candidate in the Gorton and Denton by-election, Matt Goodwin. Loads of people on the show today. Dan Hodges as well. Your calls, your emails and your text. 87222. Start your message with the word talk. Mandelson, the Royals, the junior doctors. We'll do the news at 7 next on Talk.
Of me following the migrants went from sort of 10 in the morning all around the clock to late at night, to the point where on buses, on trains, through streets, at every key point, French military police and the French police, they were there. They were on the bus taking down notes, taking pictures, but not doing anything to deter the migrants or stop them, just being there.
The UK on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very good morning, welcome back. Just after 7 o'clock, it is Tuesday, it is February the 3rd. This is JK on Breakfast, the home of, Alarm Clock Brits, the home of common sense, the place where you can come and have your say. You're waking up to some shocking news. It's a story that ain't going anywhere, Pete. Peter Mandelson facing a criminal investigation and accused of leaking sensitive Downing Street emails and inside information whilst a cabinet minister, whilst at the forefront of the Labour Party and its government for years, to the disgraced paedophile Jeffrey Epstein. I do feel sorry for most of you. You've seen this front page of the Mail this morning. There he is in his underpants. Labour's Dark Lord now faces a criminal inquiry. This Epstein scandal going nowhere. In terms of Mandelson, most people would say got away with it for years, fingerprints all over everything that's bad about New Labour and everything else. Teflon, they call him. I think his day of reckoning is coming. Andrew, of course, as well, the ex-Duke of York. His world's getting smaller. Sarah Ferguson, some disgusting emails released over the weekend. It includes their daughters and allegations, and she was begging Epstein for money and taking the kids to see him after he'd come out of jail and been convicted as a paedophile. The Clintons overnight saying that they will testify. They've been pressured. This is a story that is going absolutely nowhere. I like Dom in Chelmsford this morning. Dom, well done. He says, Jez, have you ever had a photo of you taking your underpants? But you've got absolutely no recollection of it ever being taken. Not really. And just in a little light-hearted way, before we get down to business, there is a story doing the rounds this morning. It's a very, very funny story. It's about a Frenchman who arrived in a hospital, unexploded bum, with a shell that he'd inserted somewhere that the sun don't shine. And the bomb disposal experts had to be called to the French hospital in Toulouse. It was quite a walk, and they had to go there because it hadn't exploded. And this is my favourite text of the morning, and then we'll move on seriously. Paul says, no, it's Terry. That bomb in the Frenchman's bum, is this part of the one in, one out scheme? The kids time are integrated, probably is 7:05. A very good morning, good friend of the show. We love having him, former Labour MP and Reform defector, Simon Danshuk. Good morning.
Good morning, good to be with you.
Simon, Lord Mandelson, you were a Labour MP. Try and put into words for my viewers, listeners this morning, How much of him and his fingerprints are all over Labour?
Oh, very much so. I mean, from the early days, in the mid-1990s, right up to the present day, thrown out of government by Blair, brought back into government by Blair, and then brought back into government by Gordon Brown, and then brought back into government by Keir Starmer as the US ambassador. I mean, he has been all over Labour for decades, hasn't he? But rightly called out over all this stuff. I mean, in simple terms, he's a wrong 'un.
Did you know him?
No, I didn't know him. I would have been in the same room as him at various different events, but we certainly never. I can't recall ever meeting him. Certainly not meeting him in my underpants. That's for sure.
Did he have a sort of hold? We can talk about the police. We'll get Blexley on in a bit to talk about whether an investigation is going to happen, because, you know, a lot of people that listen to this would have one word in their heads, which is fairness. They look at the dreadful situation with the grooming gangs inquiry, that seems to have been shelved and pushed under the carpet by the establishment. The same here. Mandelson's fingerprints are on so much, and yet the fear of so many people texting this morning is he's probably got dirt on everybody and will get away with it. Or do you think his time of reckoning is upon him?
I think he'll be investigated. I think he has to be. I've been, over the last few days, saying that the police have to be involved. The Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, is trying to play this down, and he has said, I'll have an investigation by the Cabinet Secretary, the head of the Civil Service. That's not adequate by any stretch. What he's done, and more is going to come out, isn't it? There's no doubt about that. It's coming out by the hour. You know, people are trawling through all this information from Jeffrey Epstein, and it's quite clearly implicating him in more and more alleged corruption.
And I guess the question is, from people, normal everyday people, he's been sacked 3 times. He keeps coming back. Starmer's judgment in making him the US ambassador, a man who ignored MI5 over the Chinese embassy, which I guess he would have been warned about Mandelson, and if not, why not? But the fact of the matter is, this can't be covered up. This guy has had too much clout, I think, and it raises the whole question of how many people are involved. Because when the Epstein thing sort of started, you sort of, you know, Gates, Clintons, Trump, Prince Andrew, Sarah. How many more? I mean, talk to me about Epstein for a minute, because there's been all sorts of, like, you know, stories doing the rounds that you know, what was one at the weekend? Oh, he's a front man for the KGB. He was financed by the KGB. That's the only way he'd have got billions, and getting all this information. I don't know. All of that might sound... But if you gave this story and it wasn't written down, you'd think I was going mad. I mean, this is extraordinary.
Yeah, I read that at the weekend in the Mail on Sunday about Epstein and the Russians. And there is some, if you delve into the Epstein stuff, the connection between him and Robert Maxwell, Ghislaine Maxwell's father, sir. There were clearly a connection. They'd been doing business together before Robert Maxwell fell off the boat into the sea and died. So there's clearly been they were doing business together. Robert Maxwell was very much connected to the Soviet Union, to Russia, and to Mossad and to the Israelis, and it appears from what's now being reported that Epstein followed suit, you know, and you do wonder what that whole relationship was. I mean, whether he was blackmailing some very senior people in business and in politics. It's fascinating, awful stuff, really.
Let's just try and get inside this man's head, because Mandelson has escaped for years. A great article yesterday by Richard Littlejohn who said it couldn't happen to a nastier man, that this guy has literally had dirt on everybody for years and has managed to escape. This is him on Laura Kunsberg. It was just a couple of weeks ago on not apologising over Epstein. Just watch this man in action. Peter Mandelson.
Do you want to take this chance to apologise to his victims for your association with him, which went years beyond his original conviction?
I want to apologise to those women for a system that refused to hear their voices and did not give them the protection they were entitled to expect.
It's extraordinary, isn't it? But let's go further. Starmer in January 2024 was quizzed about Mandelson, just look at how and listen to how uncomfortable Keir Starmer, our Prime Minister, is. Have a listen.
On Peter Mandelson, look, and I do try to give pretty full answers in these sessions. I don't know any more than you do, and therefore there's not really much I can add to what you already know, I'm afraid. And you know, that's simply the state of the affairs.
I mean, honestly, and that was before he made him the ambassador to America, right? Yeah. That's before. So I have a question which sounds conspiratorial, and it's not meant to. If Blair sacked him 3 times and brought him back, if Gordon Brown brought him back, if Keir Starmer brought him back, if everybody seems to know what a dodgy piece of work this guy is, how much dirt has he got on other people?
Yeah, well, I mean, Keir Starmer is clearly implicated in this. It's a real problem for the Prime Minister. He brings him in as US ambassador against advice from the security services, He ignores that, brings him in. And people forget this. It's only a few months ago that Mandelson was going in, it was reported, was going in the back door of Downing Street to help with the government's reshuffle. He was advising Morgan McSweeney, Starmer's closest advisor, on who to put where in the cabinet. Yeah. That's the role that Mandelson was playing. He wasn't just the US ambassador trying to get Chagos deal over the line in Washington. He was brought in to actually reorganise government.
And let's just stick on that point, Simon, that you've just made. You saw Starmer, right, before he made him the ambassador. I don't know, I mean, listen to him in September 25, before he had to sack him. This is him saying, I've got full confidence in Peter Mandelson.
The ambassador has repeatedly expressed his deep regret for his association with him. He's right to do so. I have confidence in him, and he's playing an important role in the UK-US relationship.
I mean, politically, his judgment is appalling at best, Keir Starmer's, isn't it?
Yes, and you know what really upsets me, and probably upsets all of your listeners, is that Keir Starmer appointed him to be US ambassador knowing that he had a very close friendship with a paedophile. He knew that. And the only time he's now come out and said he should be sacked and lose his title is over corruption allegations. So Starmer didn't mind him being a close associate friend of a paedophile, but when it involves corruption, he then decides he has to go. And I think Starmer has a real issue around this topic. I think it's dreadful. He thinks that it's acceptable for Mandelson to be close to a paedophile, and can do government, and then only pushes him away when it's corruption.
I agree. Overnight, Starmer, of course, saying that he should have he should be kicked out of the House of Lords. It is about Starmer's judgment. Jez, I refuse, says Will in Liverpool, to believe that Starmer didn't know the full extent of Mandelson's relationship with Epstein, because our security services would have told him. Yet Starmer still gave Mandelson one of the most important jobs in our country. I agree with Will. We have to ask ourselves why. Tony in Ricep, a very good morning. He says, I'm so looking forward to PMQs tomorrow. Let's hope that Kemi takes Starmer to the cleaners, unless, of course, Starmer decides to go off on another jolly. Good to see you back, Jez. All we keep hearing, says Joe from Norfolk, all we keep seeing in press is MPs and scandals and security breaches. If we treated civil service like the private sector, they'd all be sacked and charged and served time. I personally genuinely believe, Si, that this is going nowhere. Let's move this on to Andrew, the former Duke of York. I mean, some of the emails, and Sarah Ferguson, I cringed at. I cringed that she took her daughters to his house, was begging him for money after he'd been convicted, called him baby, said, just marry me. One of the big, and the reason I wanted you on today is you were at the MP in Rochdale, and the ever-simmering hate about, quite rightly, the grooming gangs, the rape gangs. Still, we haven't had an inquiry. One of the biggest arguments about that site is that the establishment has closed ranks for years. I don't think the British people will accept the establishment closing ranks behind Mandelson and Andrew. I think both will probably face and should probably face criminal charges. What do you reckon?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think Mandelson and Prince Andrew, I think, are culpable. I think they have real questions to answer, and the police are rightly being called in over Mandelson. I mean, he's given away market-sensitive information. We have to know what he knew. You know, he tries to paint it as an association that he just knew Epstein. The guy's walking around Epstein's house in his underpants. Whose friend do you have where you walk around their house in your underpants? I mean, they were intimately close. There's no doubt about it. And more is coming out by the day. There is loads and loads of information coming out, more evidence coming out against Prince Andrew, against Sarah Ferguson, against Mandelson.
Her charities had to close overnight after those revelations. And also, I don't know if you saw it, Andrew sent a fawning congratulations message to Epstein days after the pedo was released from house arrest. So the brother of our king went, he didn't go, I'm not going to have anything to do with you, you piece of crap. You've been done for soliciting young, innocent girls. Let's get that right. I'm going to send you a congratulatory email saying, I'm glad you're out. We've got a guy that was in the cabinet saying, would you like some secrets so you can make a bit more money? It does paint the most appalling picture.
Yeah,
it really does. And I don't know if there's a precedent here, but you can genuinely see one of those two or both ending up in prison. And maybe I'm saying the wrong thing.
We're going through a financial crisis in 2009. The economy, the UK, the world economy is crashing. And this guy, Gordon Brown's trying to sort it out as Prime Minister. And this guy is in government, brought back by Gordon Brown, and he's leaking information. This is the allegation against him, leaking information to a friend that helps his friend make money. He doesn't have a care in the world about the British people, does he? He's leaking market-sensitive information to a friend so that they can make money. I mean, the allegation is significant. It's massive. He should be doing time.
Derek in Newell in Derbyshire says, well, what can you say that has not already been said about Peter Mandelson? Where was Two Tiers' due diligence? In fact, what was he thinking? Two Tiers should also be in the dock alongside Mandy, simply because he knew of his previous record in government. Even if he didn't, even if Two Tier knows that ignorance is no excuse in the eyes of the law. I'm with you, but you've got to bear in mind, and I will be accused of being anti-Starmer, and I make no apology for this. This is a man who was told by our security services don't allow the Chinese embassy to be built in London. Maybe somebody whispered in his ear and said Mandelson's no good. It's like he doesn't listen, man.
I have a problem with Starmer over these issues, and you mentioned Rochdale and the grooming gangs. You know, Starmer's ready to accept Mandelson, who's a close friend of a paedophile. Starmer has got questions to answer over his role at the Crown Prosecution Service over Jimmy Savile and not prosecuting him. He didn't prosecute enough rape gang perpetrators when he was head of the Crown Prosecution Service. He doesn't want a national inquiry into the rape gangs. Now he's Prime Minister. He's found wanting time and again when it comes to child abuse. And why doesn't he just think for a moment about the victims? I think there are real questions to answer by Starmer about this very issue. It relates to Mandelson, it relates to the rape gangs, it relates to Savile. It's as though he doesn't care about the victims. I have real concerns about that.
And I think you're right. I think also his moral compass.
Exactly.
You want to appear on the world stage, and we keep going back to this as the man who does right by everybody. I'm going to apologise for the colonies. I'm going to give away the Chagos Islands. I know we're skint, but I'm giving away 16 billion. I want to be doing the right thing. I care about human rights. You've just gone to China. You've gone to China, who have the worst records in human rights, and you are absolutely right to call him out on child abuse. Anybody with an ounce, or with a child, you know, he's got kids, would go, that is the most disgraceful thing, the rape gangs. I think in the history of this country, I'm going to be all over this. Same with Mandelson. It does, again, I don't want to make it like conspiratorial, but it does beg the question, how many people are caught up in this? And Epstein, who was he? Where did he get his influence? Maybe he was, you've said it, maybe he was something to do with other governments and did that for a reason. But this is This is not going away. And I have to say as well, the British people won't allow this to go away. They're too angry about this, aren't they?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. It will stay with us and more information will come out and questions will have to be answered. But, you know, you think about the previous Prime Ministers that we've had just in the shortness of time. Nobody's been implicated in anything like this, unlike Starmer has, actually. You think of Rishi Sunak. There was nothing around Sunak, you know. Starmer tried to paint the previous Conservative Prime Ministers as sleazy. It is nothing compared to what's happened in this time. You can list the number of ministers who've had to go under Keir Starmer, Louise Haigh, Tulip Sadiq, Rushnara Ali, Angela Rayner. This was Mr. Rules before he became Prime Minister. I mean, it's quite the opposite. The Sun captures it on page 5 there, you know, Starmer's sleaze fail. That is exactly right.
I couldn't agree more. 7:20, Simon Danship with us. What do you make of the Peter Mandelson situation? Andrew, Fergie, as I say, the Clintons have agreed to testify. This is going absolutely nowhere. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. Si, before you go, junior doctors have voted to keep striking for, well, until the summer. This is an organisation, the BMA, who got 28.9% when Streeting arrived as the health secretary. He said the problem with the Tories was they didn't talk to these poor doctors. I've done it. There's a package. They're happy. That's the end of the strikes. What he didn't do was go, oh, I didn't ask for anything back when I cut that deal. They're going to be back in 12 months. And so they're back, saying that they're going to strike. This is where 7 million people, unless you're a migrant, are waiting to see a doctor.
It's bad news, isn't it, to say the least. And Wes, you're right. The negotiations of the Labour government, when they came in power, they gave to the, you'll recall, they gave to the train drivers, they gave to the junior doctors, and got nothing in return. Productivity is at an all-time low across the United Kingdom, and yet they just gave these handouts. And not surprisingly, these workers are coming back for more. They're blackmailing the country. I mean, it's outrageous.
Completely outrageous. I'd love to know what you think about junior doctors, because I think there was a time, wasn't there, when people were sympathetic. I think the general public's hard-working Brits are probably not going to feel sympathetic in that situation.
Yeah, no, that's definitely changed. And perhaps we should look at legislation that says they can't take strike action, which is the case for the police and the armed forces and others.
Got Kinsey Schofield live from America in just a tick. Want to get her angle on Andrew and Epstein and all that. Just one thing. You would know this. Can Mandelson, I mean, he might face a criminal prosecution here. Can he and Andrew be forced to go to America and testify?
I think they can, actually. There's we have extradition rules between the two countries, and I think they could insist on bringing them over. I think it would be negotiated initially, and they would feel obliged to do it, but I think they could be forced if necessary. I think this is going to play out over several months.
Very interesting. Before you go, later on we've got Matt Goodwin, Reform's candidate at the Gorton election, the Gorton by-election, which is February the 26th. Matt, ex-broadcaster, standing for Reform. They announced over the weekend the Green Party, this extraordinary woman who's a plumber, she's about 30, and she seems to be leading in the polls, isn't she, at the moment?
That's what they're suggesting. I think Reform will win this. I don't think they can be complacent. I'm not convinced by the Green candidate. I put something out on social media over the weekend. She was my brother is a plasterer, right? He's a builder, and he's a plasterer. And this Green candidate, they put out a video of her pretending to be a plasterer. It's so unconvincing.
Well, I think that all candidates, listen, as ever with all of these things, we will try and speak and cover it from every single political angle. The Greens are standing, the Tories are standing, and Labour are standing, Reform are standing, and probably lots of other people. But we'll look at that by-election in as balanced a way as we always do. As we head towards an ad break, Simon, thank you so much indeed. This story, I know it's a bit light-hearted about the Frenchman. If you haven't heard this, little ears, turn the radio down and have a listen. Bomb disposal experts were called to a hospital after a live World War I artillery shell was found in a Frenchman's bum. The hospital was evacuated, yeah, extraordinary story. Thank you very much indeed. They says Pete, on the front of the Mail, Peter Mandelson is pictured in his wife fronts. Pete says, are you sure that wasn't a nappy because he's been in a French hospital? Maybe. Morning, Mick.
Morning, Jezza. Mick from Watford here. The story about the unexploded shell brings to mind a phrase said by Corporal Jones on Dad's Army They don't like it up 'em. Well, they obviously do.
The ripple effect is obviously left behind a 5-year-old without a mother.
He sleeps with a teddy bear with Rhiannon's picture on. He talks about her often. We shouldn't be telling a child of any age that their mother was murdered. If Starmer and his so-called government don't do something, we're not going to have a Britain for all the other women and children that are going through this, and the men too, because there is men being abused, attacked by these illegals.
Mm-hmm.
We get this changed in Rhiannon's name, and that's all we can ask for.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to 7:27. The amazing Kinsey Schofield, and just to take you waking up to the news, of course, there's only one story in town, really. It's all about Epstein. Lord Peter Mandelson, the self-styled Dark Lord, facing a possible criminal investigation this morning for leaking sensitive Downing Street emails and inside information as a cabinet minister to a convicted paedophile Epstein. Literally unbelievable. Now, he said, and this is, again, somebody's just pointed this out, it's brilliant. So there he is, front of the mail, put you off your breakfast, in his underpants. Might be a nappy, I've no idea. This is what he said about why he didn't feel that he knew what Epstein's life was all about. He said, I didn't know about Epstein's life, I'm gay. Have a listen to this.
Possibly some people will think because that I'm a gay man, I was sort of insensitised or I wasn't attuned to what was going on. I don't really accept that. I think the issue is that because I was a gay man in his circle, I was kept separate from what he was doing in the sexual side of his life.
Right, so you were kept separate from the sexual side of Epstein's life, despite the fact you're on the front of the Daily Mail in your underpants with a young woman who's barely dressed. You duplicitous, two-faced liar. Sorry. And I absolutely agree with Ray in Huntingdon, who says, Jeremy, I guarantee that the police will drag their feet on Mandelson and there would not be enough evidence to take it further. Well, let me say this and mean this from the bottom of my heart. I said it about the rape gangs, and I'll say it about Mandelson and possibly Andrew, right? The British public won't accept this anymore. They won't accept cover-ups. They can't. Everybody works too hard and tries to live by the rules and struggles. They feel unfairness everywhere, be it migrants, be it members of the royal family, be it cabinet ministers getting away with it. This can't be allowed to continue, and I think loads and loads of people. Mags, listen to this. Sarah Ferguson takes a begging bowl to Epstein but can buy a £4 million house. Andrew invites him into royal homes after he's been convicted. So glad that our late Queen was not here to see this scandal. Right on cue, a very good morning to the host of Kinsey Schofield Unfiltered, the legend. Kinsey Schofield, a very good morning. How are you?
I'm overwhelmed with all of this horrific and vulgar information we're receiving thanks to the Epstein files.
We're going to have to probably speak to you every day for about the next year, my darling. Thank you for joining us. Over here, there's political in terms of Mandelson. You probably know him. He's a high-ranking politician who's pictured in every paper in his underpants this morning, which is awful. But let's talk Andrew and Fergie.
Well, yeah, and don't forget, after months of defying congressional subpoenas, Bill and Hillary, they finally agreed to testify in the House Oversight Committee's investigation. And that is just a last-minute decision because they were fearful that there was going to be a scheduled vote that could have referred them to the Justice Department for possible prosecution. So the political side is heavy over here, too.
It is extraordinary, and we'll talk about Andrew, and we'll talk about the whole royal thing, but just from an American's point of view, loads of conspiracy theories over the weekend here in the newspapers about how this man, Epstein, managed to garner such power, such money. People are saying that he was at the behest of Mossad, the sort of Israeli forces, and also the KGB. This man had millions, billions, it seems, but also the ear of some of the most powerful men and women in the world. How? How?
Yeah, and if you read his emails, he can't spell to save his grammar is horrible. And you're just thinking anyone why would an Elon Musk who is self-made, why would a Bill Gates not immediately, why would a red flag not immediately go off when they're trying to communicate with someone like this? And I think the fact is, it was a boys' club. This was supposed to be a secret club that we never found out about. It was all about debauchery and sin, and ultimately that is what attracted these types of people to someone like Jeffrey Epstein. They felt like they were protected and that they could go do whatever they wanted and to do and get away with whatever they wanted to get away with, and Jeffrey Epstein was going to protect them.
Do you believe that, I mean, I've been saying it all morning, in terms of Peter Mandelson, who just played that clip. Oh, I didn't know what was going on, I'm gay. But you're on the front of the newspaper with a woman in your underpants, for Christ's sake. Of course you knew what was going on. He's buying an £8 million house in London. £8 million, whilst his boyfriend is being sent 10 grand by Epstein to pay for a physiotherapy course. That doesn't add up. Let's talk about Andrew and Fergie. I mean, I have to tell you, we've talked about the royals for years. You know my background. I know Fergie. Used to. That email at the weekend turned my stomach. You take your 2 young daughters to see a man who's just come out of prison for soliciting young girls to dirty old men with a begging bowl. You call him darling. You say, marry me. She is as complicit as Andrew in this. This is the most... I think this is some of the worst stuff the royal family's ever had to deal with, by a mile.
Right. And, you know, same with the politicians. You are who you associate with. And that's why this turns our stomach so much, and that's why we were so relieved when King Charles did what he did over the summer and stripped him of his titles. But was it aggressive enough? Was it soon enough? You know, now we're looking back thinking the second that the Queen passed away, really, the King likely had some sort of understanding of the extent of this scandal, and he should have potentially done it sooner. But with Fergie, it's clearly the financial ties that attract her to Epstein. You know, these documents indicate that Sarah sought his advice on some of her business ventures and requested financial help from him multiple times, including a reported $20,000 loan to cover her rent. So for her ultimate objective was always utilizing this individual to help her financially. And her mismanagement of money is something that will stay with her legacy forever. I mean, she's always been so awful when it comes to money.
Yeah, it's interesting. I read this, and Christian's just said this. You talked about the King should probably have done it sooner, maybe out of respect for his mother. I think Charles has also got a sense of loyalty. But I heard somebody say over the weekend in on some television station, I can't remember, I was away, that patently, when he did throw him out of Royal Lodge and strip him of his titles, it was about timing. It was probably, it had to be done. I wonder how much they know and knew about what was coming, or how much they know about what is still to come. But this is so sordid, and I wanted to ask you about the girls, because I was watching the news on the way in. and I really want to say this, actually, a lot of people might disagree. Beatrice and Eugenia, you can't ask, you don't decide who your parents are going to be, OK? And I've read a lot of people online saying, oh, these girls are complicit. No, at 8 and 9, if you get taken to a paedophile's house by your mother, you're not old enough to be able to question it. But I would actually...
I did check it, JK. They were 18 and 20. I did look that up earlier.
Oh, they were 18 and 20. Oh, right, fair enough. Yeah. Do you think that these girls now need to come out publicly and disown their parents? Do you think they need to do that? Because if they don't, will they not be further embroiled in this disgusting scandal?
I do, because I think that the daughters are mixed up in some of the financial, the problematic financial relationships that their parents have. And look, I mean, again, you are who you associate with. You and I probably would debate over this, because I do think that the girls should disappear for a while. Should we punish them for their father's sins? No. But by the way, former Prince Andrew says he's innocent. But I do think that they're not potentially as innocent as we would like for them to be when it comes to financial relationships that they share with their parents, and financial benefits that they share thanks to their parents.
But we will debate it, because that's what I love about the world. We should always be able to debate anything. You're saying that if they have benefited, are you telling me that, let's say money came to Sarah or Andrew, let's just paint a picture, and that's proven to come from that disgraced paedophile, Jeffrey Epstein, that by accepting or being embroiled... Are you telling me you think they knew it came from Epstein, the money? That would be the big issue. That would be the big issue, right?
Yeah, I mean, or even people that Epstein introduced their parents to. I mean, I know that, like, Prince Andrew at one point's reaching out to Epstein about a deal in Afghanistan. I mean, if in any way, shape, or form, I mean, they did, JK. They got on a plane with their mom and they went to visit Jeffrey Epstein after he got out of jail for soliciting a minor. I mean,
I didn't know the age. You've absolutely put me right there. There's a difference between 18 and 20 and 8 and 10. Completely with you on that. Maybe they do have to. But then, of course, the king has been very supportive of the girls.
He has. I think that he has a huge heart, and that's one of my one of the reasons why I love him is because of his huge heart. But I worry that being seen with them will anger people and will jeopardize his reign. Really interesting. A few quick questions. By the way, Stephen Cambridge says, brilliant. This is my favourite section of the show, Beauty and the Beast. I think it's That's very sweet.
I think it's pretty awful of him to call you a beast, to be honest, don't you, Steve? That's terrible. Right, very quickly. Talked about the Clintons finally agreeing to give evidence. In the States, right, is the Epstein saga as big as over here? And how have they reacted to that about an ex-president and his high-profile wife?
Well, don't forget, Donald Trump is mentioned throughout as well, with some claims that aren't proven. It's just reports that were made. And according to the White House, some of the documents contain untrue and sensationalized claims against President Trump that were submitted to the FBI right before the 2020 election. And so the Department of Justice said, to be clear, the claims are unfounded and false. And if they had a shred of credibility, they certainly would have been weaponized against President Trump already. But that, once something like that is out there, you do see a certain party seize it and promote it and elevate it. So it's very chaotic over here, absolutely. And on top of ICE, on top of the Grammys and the Super Bowl and all these celebrities coming out saying push back against the government, it's not a great time to live in the United States.
Do you believe that Clinton or Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, could end up being prosecuted?
I don't. I think that this is more of a reputational issue than something that they could get into any sort of trouble for legally. I think that their biggest issue will be reputationally at the end of the day.
And just also, one thing you'd be able to answer, you can be summoned in America by Congress. Whether that's legal or not, I don't know. Can they summon Andrew or Mandelson from America and force them to come or not?
I don't believe they can, and I have been told specifically by Barry Levine, who wrote a book about The Spider, about Jeffrey Epstein, that the reason Prince Andrew refuses to step foot in the United States is because that's when they could swoop him up and force an interview and force a one-on-one. And so he is avoiding stepping foot in the United States because he is fearful of that. As long as he stays out of the States, I think that they can't force his hand.
I think... I want to ask you this question. I sort of know what you're going to say. Do you think that the former Prince Andrew will go to jail over this?
I don't think he'll go to jail over this. I mean, I don't. But you did see the story yesterday that there's a new woman from Florida. A woman, she alleges that she spent the night at Prince Andrew's Royal Lodge in 2010, and she was sent by Jeffrey Epstein and her attorneys talking. You know, he said that she was given a private tour of Buckingham Palace and tea, which is insane and unacceptable. The BBC reports that Andrew did not respond to them when they asked for a comment, and someone close to the palace stressed that the claim could not be independently verified without identifying the woman. And if she is truly a victim, then they want to protect her privacy.
It's an extraordinary story. Don't go to sleep for the next few days, because I feel we'll be using you every single day. I'm really grateful as ever. Great to have you on. Kinsey Schofield, we'll speak to you later in the week. Thank you very much indeed. This whole Epstein story is not going to go away in any hurry whatsoever. Whether you're Peter Mandelson, who's facing an inquiry, quite right as well. We'll speak to Blexley soon. Maybe the police will get involved. You know, state secrets to Epstein, Andrew, Russian prostitutes to Royal Lodge, allegedly, Sarah, loans. The whole thing is so murky. Morning, Pete.
There is people much more powerful than Epstein involved in this. I think Epstein was the front man of this outfit, you know. There must be something going on where the Clintons are now having to speak up. Something very, very big is happening, and I think there's going to be an awful lot of famous and powerful names are going to get thrown to the wolves to protect the real people that hide behind Epstein and his wasn't even his empire, was it? He was just the front man.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. 16 minutes to 8 o'clock. Peter Blexley later on talking about whether the Met Police should in fact bring Andrew and Mandelson to task. Dan Hodges, Mail on Sunday commentator, after 8 as well. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. Quickly, I want to have a quick chat. Will Kingston, political commentator. Welcome to Breakfast, Will. How are you?
G'day, Jeremy. Good, mate. How are you?
I'm all right. Listen, amongst all the madness of Mandelson and Andrew and junior doctors, we've sort of missed an hour and a half into the show today. More migrant madness, Will, over the weekend. A couple of stories that just leave you I mean, I don't even say as a Brit, just as a sort of common sense person wondering what the hell's going on in the world. An Albanian thief has escaped deportation after saying this to the judge. No, you can't send me. My husband made me steal it. Please let me stay. And the judge goes, OK, you can stay as well. And the other, an Egyptian small boat migrant jailed for raping a British girl, told his lawyer he deserves punishment. I don't care how long I serve, just don't send me back because the prisons here are nicer than at home. How soft have we become, Will Kingston?
Very. The sad thing is, Jeremy, these aren't even the worst cases I've heard in this genre in recent months. In a nutshell, you have now a tangled, interconnected series of laws that make it incredibly easy for scumbags to enter this country. And you have an ideologically captured judiciary that cynically uses those laws to keep those scumbags in the country. And the lesson is, if you are going to make any fundamental changes as a reform government, for example, to both the legal and illegal immigration problems this country faces, you need to get rid of those laws like the Human Rights Act and the ECHR, and you need to sweep out all of these progressive judges that effectively use the bench as a way for them to virtue signal for their progressive, liberal Islington mates. It's as simple
I
as that.
couldn't agree more. And interestingly, frighteningly, alongside what you described as progressive judges, and bear in mind that our Prime Minister, the human rights guru lawyer, if I was in power, I would do something about those human rights laws. It's quite how the British taxpayer is supposed to pay for people who shouldn't be here to use the services of people who've got only one thing to do, is to make themselves look good, no common sense. But also, scarily under this government, Will, they want to get rid of juries. So it would be even more cases, in fact, across the board in this country, if Calamity Lammy has his way, where a progressive judge would be able, as you quite rightly say, to make an opinion. Frightening, and no common sense.
Yeah, I suspect the jury's policy will be yet another Labor U-turn, so I'm not as worried about that, fingers crossed. But you mentioned the cost to the taxpayer, and that's what crossed my mind when I was reading that story about the Albanians. Almost always the way that these work is that the lower immigration tribunal X whatever appeal comes up from these, Albanian scumbags, and then it goes up to a higher court, and they then go, oh, well, the lower court was wrong, therefore they're going to be allowed to stay. And I imagine that takes years. It takes, publicly funded lawyers who are representing these people. The amount of money that must just go into this process for the return of keeping people in this country who will no doubt then go on benefits in a large percentage of the time is just frightening. It's absolutely frightening.
And I don't understand the logic behind it. This is my issue almost every morning. Your country's skint. You refuse to use an asset that we've got, Keir Starmer, which is North Sea oil. You go ahead with these crazy things, whether it's trying to be clean on energy and costing us more, or give away sovereign islands, or money that gets found that to give doctors a 30% pay rise and then they want more. And yet your average hard-working Brit, keep saying it, is really struggling. And that word fairness comes to me the whole time. There's no fairness. There's no fairness in illegal migrants. There's no fairness in an establishment that get away with perpetrating crimes. We are too soft to people we should be harder with, and too hard on the people, I think, who pay into the system and deserve looking after.
There's a line that runs through each of the examples you've just given: net zero, Chagos, and immigration madness. And that is that the people who run this country think that there is something that is more important than the best interests of the British people. And that is some higher rules-based order, human rights, the rights of everyone around the world, as opposed to the best interests of the British people, which is why you see repeatedly now a government that doesn't put the British people first. That's what happens when you have a government which is quite literally led by international human rights lawyers, as opposed to led by everyday normal people who recognise that in any country, in any democracy, the rights of the people should go as the number one priority for any government.
Couldn't agree more, Will. Great to have you on. Quick one this morning, but delighted. Will Kingston on Talk Breakfast. Morning, JB.
Jezza, Mandelson and Andy Pandy, they should both be extradited to America and face their consequences. And it's shame on this country that they have brought. Unbelievable. Get them out of the country.
I wrote and edited the very first item, I think in June 1997, about Peter Mandelson. How on earth does an MP, as he was then, on only £45,000 a year, managed to afford a basically 450 grand property in Notting Hill? He lied to the editor of the Evening Standard and told him it was about his mum had left him money. Turns out it was a loan from another member of the cabinet, Geoffrey Robertson. Both men were forced out. He's forced out again over money and relationships with billionaire Indian brothers.
Yeah.
And then forced out of the US ambassador role.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 8 minutes to 8. We're live across the UK. This is Talk Breakfast. It's the home of common sense. It's where the nation, where hard-working Brits come to talk. You're waking up to this murky story about Epstein. It's not going anywhere, mate. Peter Mandelson stands accused of... He could face a criminal inquiry for basically divulging secret emails and government information whilst he was a cabinet minister for the third time to Epstein. He'd already been convicted as a paedophile. Throw in Andrew. By the way, I forgot to say when Kinsey was on, Donald Trump mentioned 3,000 times in the last tranche, is that the right word, of emails? It's an absolute nightmare. Let's say good morning to a man who will be able to shed a bit of light on what might happen. Peter Blackstone, in the middle of a world tour. Where are you this morning, my dear fellow?
Good morning. I'm pleased to report that I'm at home and looking forward to performing in Ealing, West London this evening.
Very nice. It's a great show. Go and see it. He didn't pay me to say it. The Makings of a Murderer. Pete, serious question. We wake up to allegations about Mandelson, the Dark Lord, a potential criminal offence, leaking sensitive Downing Street emails and inside information. We've heard about Andrew, about, you know, the pictures, the rumours of more Russian girls being sent by Epstein. Do you believe that the Met should or will open or reopen cases into both of these two shameless individuals? Yes or no?
They must. The Met do not have a choice now. Politicians are lobbying them to open an investigation, and it would appear that there are sufficient grounds now to open an investigation into the actions, the behaviour of both Mandelson and Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. I think what the Met need to do is go public very quickly to assuage public fears, to announce any such investigation, and then, of course, to start looking across the pond to the Atlantic to who can they work with out there, be that the FBI, maybe even there's reason to liaise with the CIA. But this investigation needs to be done. The public are going to demand it, as well as the politicians, and it needs to be a relentless search for evidence. And I would urge people to remember that they will need to discover evidence. Of course, people can say there's no smoke without fire, and that's all well and good, but the detectives will need to gather evidence.
You will know much more than all of us. I've been asking all morning, can the Americans enforce calling either Mandelson and Andrew or both to Congress to testify?
I believe they can compel them to come and give evidence. The whole question is, though, are they able to sanction them if they refuse? That'll come down to whether people can be compelled from another jurisdiction, because it would appear that Mandelson and Mountbatten Windsor are both very much in the UK. I'm not entirely sure of Congress's global reach in terms of being able to compel them. If they were in the States, that really wouldn't be a problem. Once again, the people who will benefit from all of this shenanigans will be the lawyers.
I agree. It's so murky. And one of the things that's come through this morning, mate, which you would understand, because you've always talked very openly and honestly about how the British people should be able to think that their police force is there to protect victims and to punish people who commit crimes. So many people this morning, Pete, saying, oh, it'll be a cover-up. You know, the grooming gangs, the rape gangs inquiry has been a cover-up by so many people in the establishment. You're talking here not just about Mandelson, who's probably got dirt on every single person in the Labour Party by all accounts, but also the son of our former wonderful, amazing Queen. Thank God she's not here anymore to see this. I completely agree with that last texter. But do you honestly think, can you see a member of the royal family going to prison anywhere in the future? Can you imagine that?
Well, we've beheaded them centuries ago, so I live in hope, should there be sufficient evidence, of course. And for me, it's all about the evidence. I completely understand why anybody in the UK would be cynical. I completely get that. Look at how the establishment, in repeated situations over the last few decades in my lifetime, has covered up and covered up and covered up. Hillsborough being one of the most notable and shameful examples of that, and others where the establishment closes ranks, protects itself. Never mind the little people, they'll go away. We hold all the cards. We are rapidly heading towards being a very low trust society, in that people will not trust any of the establishment, whether that be the police, politicians, the NHS, local councils, anybody in authority. We are headlong towards that low trust society where no one in a position of authority will be believed, will be trusted, will be respected. And when you become a low trust society, it's been shown around the world for a very, very long time, then very bad things happen.
If the police do get involved, would they have to go to Andrew's home, or would they be able to call an ex-royal prince in to see them at a police station?
Again, that will all depend on whether there are grounds, for example, to apply for a search warrant, or whether there are sufficient grounds for an inspector to authorise a search. It's all about the evidence. If there's grounds to act, then they will need to act. But of course, getting grounds for an inspector to sign off a warrant or going to court and having a warrant issued, you have to lay out information, you've got to give evidence, the grounds must be there, and the police, of course, must act lawfully. And that is what they are going to be poring over, I'm absolutely sure. It would appear to me, from what I'm seeing at a distance in the media today, that Mandelson certainly has an awful lot of questions to answer. And I would urge the Met to really make a public statement as soon as they possibly can and get those detectives on those planes, or at least on those Zoom meetings, to colleagues in America and saying, and what more have you got, please?
I couldn't agree more, and I think the British people will demand it. And actually, I was just thinking, we've only got a minute, but actually, the Met has had, quite rightly, awful headlines and a really poor reaction to some pretty bad decisions it's taken. This would be an opportunity for somebody in the Met this morning to go, this is our moment, like you said, to stand up and do something about that, because the British people are not going to allow Mandelson or Andrew out of this. It's just murky, Pete, isn't it? The whole thing's murky.
British policing is in crisis, of that there is absolutely no doubt, as is the criminal justice system. This is a moment for the Met Police to stand up, be counted, and try and win back a grain of public trust.
Good man. Well done beating the league leaders, Coventry, QPR on Saturday, and we wish you continued success with the makings of a murderer, you legend. See you soon, PB. Good to have you on. Peter Blexley, almost 8 o'clock. Dan Hodges on the way. It's Mail on Sunday writer. He's got some opinions. Alex Burkhardt, Shadows Chance to the Duchy of Lancaster as well. All that on Talk Breakfast. And your text 87222. Start your message with the word talk. But the news at 8 is next.
Hello from Crowborough, where the local residents are enraged with what has happened to their community merely overnight, when just 27 single male asylum seeker illegal migrants were bussed into their military training camp. Behind me are local residents, people from all over the country. Shabana Mahmood has said that this is an effective way of getting rid of those expensive, flashy asylum hotels. But unfortunately, these people are still placed within the community.
Whole town is very afraid because these are unvetted men from countries that are, the government warn us not to go to. I've got an 18-year-old daughter and she gets the bus opposite camp. Do you feel safe for her? No, so that will have to stop. Right. We'll either have to wait with her or take her to wherever she needs to go.
The reason I'm here today is because I live in Crowborough and my family, I've got a wife and children, and just worried about, my wife walking to work and my sons, walking about. anything can happen, can't it, that nowadays and age, all what's going on, what's happening in this country. So I'm just concerned and frightened, you know.
There was support from other towns, other communities, because of course Shabana Mahmood has threatened other communities, and she said they're going to open site after site after site. Well, I would hope that if she's going to try and do that, she learns some lessons about the way she's done it in Crowborough, because this is not finished. We are not finished objecting to this plan.
Crowborough says no! Crowborough says no! Crowborough says no!
We would urge her to reconsider, and whatever she does, she needs to talk to the people that she's imposing these things on.
You had a direct line to Keir Starmer and Shabana Mahmood. What would you say to them?
Look after your most vulnerable first. It's your priority to look after your vulnerable.
If they're bringing illegal immigrants into a camp in the dead of night, why are they doing that? They're doing that because it's disingenuous, it's dishonest, it's covert, and they're trying to keep the reality away from the local community of what they're actually doing to us. We've now got to the end of the entrance to the camp, we've got cameras, we've got police drones. It's like a cloud that's come over this community.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, my friends. Just gone 8 o'clock. We're live across the United Kingdom. It's Tuesday, it's February the 3rd, and this murky story won't go anywhere. We're waking up to hear that Labour's Dark Lord, there he is in all his glory, in his white underpants on the front of the Mail, sorry to put you off your breakfast, could face a criminal inquiry. The Met Police, encouraged there by Peter Bleksley, to come out and say something. This man, who has had more lives than honest to God, sacked 3 times, back in the cabinet, made the US ambassador under Starmer despite MI5 saying don't, had to resign again. This man accused this morning of leaking sensitive Downing Street emails and inside information to the paedophile Jeffrey Epstein. Epstein's fingerprints over this, over Andrew, over Fergie, the Clintons overnight saying that they're going to testify. This is going absolutely nowhere. To give you some idea about Peter Mandelson, that slippery, honestly, how he's managed to ingratiate his way into so many people's lives over the years is beyond me. Laura Kunsberg decided to do an interview with him the other day, and his excuse for not believing that, or even understanding or knowing what Epstein was about, you know, hordes of young girls, hordes of men, anything goes on this island. This is how Mandelson said, right? Well, I didn't know I was gay. Have a watch.
Possibly some people will think because that I'm a gay man, I was sort of insensitised or I wasn't attuned to what was going on. I don't really accept that. I think the issue is that because I was a gay man in his circle, I was kept separate from what he was doing in the sexual side of his life.
Because I was a gay man, I was kept separate from what he was doing sexually in his life. Then why, you liar, are you on the front of every newspaper this morning in your underpants with a young woman half dressed in a dressing gown? Let me say this for the people that listen and watch this show, overwhelmingly all saying the same thing. If the establishment closes ranks and doesn't do something about Peter Mandelson and Andrew, there is going to be an uproar. Let's go to Mail on Sunday legend Dan Hodges. Welcome to Talk Breakfast, my friend. How are you?
Good morning.
Did you know Mandelson? Do you know Mandelson?
I did. I've known him. I've known him for years now. I think over the next few days we're going to have a lot of people forgetting they ever knew him. But I've known him for years, and it was interesting. I was speaking to a lot of people who I used to work with, and we used to work together with him, and some people who were close to him and were good friends with him, obviously some people who were bitter political enemies of him. And to a man and woman, they were saying they just cannot believe what's come out. Now, everybody knew Peter obviously was an operator, and people knew Peter was a political operator, and also people knew Peter had a bit of a love for money. But the allegation that we've seen, and I haven't seen, I don't know if you've seen it, I haven't seen any serious rebuttal of the emails we've seen, which clearly indicates he was passing very, very sensitive government information onto Epstein, this convicted paedophile. Obviously, Mandelson himself, Peter himself, obviously denies receiving money. We're going to have to wait and see how that pans out. But I genuinely think, and I know we have a tendency to hyperbole on this stuff, if you put together the stature of the people involved in this scandal, Peter Mandelson, someone who was at the heart of the government, one of the former prime ministers and one of our most powerful prime ministers, most senior advisors. You throw in senior members of the royal family. You throw in Epstein, the nature of Epstein's, crimes and offences. Then you couple in the clear evidence now that we reported on in the Mail on Sunday, that it's highly probable Epstein was an active Russian intelligence asset. I can't remember in my lifetime a domestic political scandal on this scale. This isn't MPs taking a few bob to build a duck house.
I wouldn't disagree.
Absolutely.
I wouldn't disagree, but I would, and I like what you said at the beginning, because you're very honest. Over the next few days, people will come out and say, I didn't know him. You said you did know him, and you said I wouldn't have believed it. But then I've spoken to loads of people who have said that this slippery human being has been ingratiating himself with any person over the years that can provide him with money. Let's look at the facts. He was sacked initially from the cabinet for a loan, a fraudulent loan that he had through Jeffrey Robinson and a dodgy mortgage. That was the first time. The second time he was brought back, he was sacked for arranging passports for bent businessmen who shouldn't have been in this country. My question to you is, because you would know far more than me, where is the power inside Labour that convinced the then Prime Minister Gordon Brown to bring back this disgraced human being, and then, even more so, I suspect, but maybe on a par, our current Prime Minister, the human rights guru who doesn't seem to care that much about abused children, brought him back as US ambassador despite the MI5 security forces saying, this guy's a liability. What I guess I'm asking, Dan, is what has he got on everybody, man?
I think there's a couple of things. To answer the first part of the question, the reason Peter Mandelson kept coming back is that in terms of politics, Peter Mandelson was one of the most skilled political operators in the country, if not the world, at that time. You've put your finger on it. One of the people the person who gave him his most dramatic rehabilitation was Gordon Brown, somebody who was one of his most bitter enemies, which shows the extent to which Gordon Brown thought he's a necessary evil. He can do something for me and my government on a political level. But as we've seen, and I think this is where this scandal is going to start to go now. People have criticism of Gordon Brown. I don't think anybody would criticise Gordon Brown's personal integrity and probity. It's Gordon Brown who flagged, it appears 5 months ago, issues very close to the current revelations. And the question that now needs to be asked, you said MI5 basically said to Downing Street, don't appoint him. My understanding, speaking to both people in government and intelligence sources, it is much, much murkier than that. Much, much murkier. And there are serious questions now about when he was appointed. And again, let's not have hindsight. I wrote it. A number of people wrote it and said actually it was quite a smart appointment at the time by Keir Starmer. But the question is, why did Downing Street at that time he was appointed? Why did the vetting process at that time miss these major revelations? Now, were they completely missed? I'm not entirely sure they were completely missed. But there's a second aspect to this, which I think we're going to start seeing moving on to in the next few days, is even if Keir Starmer missed the full nature of Mandelson's links to Epstein when he appointed him, what happened when this scandal finally broke? When he finally had to let Peter Mandelson go? We now know, but we didn't know until a couple of days ago, that Gordon Brown, former Prime Minister, himself 5 months ago raised serious questions about Mandelson. Now, we're told the Cabinet Office conducted an investigation at that time, but found nothing. Now, how did they find nothing? Because the point is, the evidence of what Mandelson had allegedly been up to was sitting on files in Washington. Did the Cabinet Office approach the authorities in Washington? Did Keir Starmer approach the authorities in Washington? Did Keir Starmer say to, at the time we were being told, his good friend Donald Trump, who Keir Starmer consistently says the rationale, one of the key rationales for our relationship with the United States is good intelligence sharing. Did he not say? Did he not ask questions?
Which is, if I can
you go through the files and let me know everything that this guy's been up to?
If I can jump in,
I find that incomprehensible.
No, I do as well, and I think, Dan, that's the big issue for so many people who don't have the insight that you do. I mean, they will say to me in their droves, there has to be more. It can't just be stupidity. And if it is stupidity, think about it. Blair brings him back twice. Brown brings him back. Starmer makes him his US ambassador. There is definitive proof that it wasn't, 6 months ago, right, that he was going round, he was getting in round the back at Downing Street to help Morgan McSweeney, the Chief of Staff of Starmer, another political protege of the Dark Lord, to work out the latest cabinet reshuffle. Forget the Prime Minister. This guy, I think, must have his tentacles over so much. And then it does start begging the question, it's not actually hyperbole, which is a bit like the rape gang, grooming gang, disgusting fiasco whereby there still isn't an inquiry and people still seem to be doing. I just think a lot of people will think, how deep does this go? How many people does this implicate? And I genuinely believe, will say a lot of people, this will be swept under the carpet. I think this is an opportunity, as Peter Blexley said, Dan, for the Met Police to finally claw back some of the unpopularity. I think they have to get the hell on with this, and Andrew, as soon as possible.
As I said yesterday, I don't think anyone seriously believes a Cabinet Office inquiry can get to the bottom of this affair. Not least because, as we now know, 5 months ago, Gordon Brown approached the Cabinet Office, said, will you investigate this? The Cabinet Office apparently did investigate and said, nothing to see here, Gov. No, we haven't uncovered anything. So as you say, if we had a situation last week where the police were apparently looking to whether or not a stupid tweet from the Labour Party had smeared a Reform candidate. If the police are not going to investigate this, which is a prima facie evidence of one of the most senior cabinet minister handing state secrets to a convicted paedophile for cash, whilst that paedophile was very probably a major intelligence asset for a hostile state, then what are the police for? I mean, just on the, and I've seen this thing, the offences didn't happen in our jurisdiction. How long and how much money have the police spent on investigating the disappearance of Madeleine McCann in Portugal?
Couldn't agree, mate. I couldn't agree more.
How can we then not? How has the investigation not already been opened? If people, Peter Mandelson needs to be given the opportunity to present his case and present his defence, as does Prince Andrew, as do others involved in this. But I think there's two aspects to this. In previous I think the police will have to open an investigation. But in previous scandals, and you've seen this and I've seen this, as soon as a police investigation is opened, the politicians suddenly say, really sorry, can't do anything now. It's active police investigation. There's nothing that can be done. There has to be a parallel process here. There clearly has to be a criminal investigation, but there also has to be a political investigation. And I think one of the key things that I'm going to be asking is, how is it credible that over the last 6 months, after Gordon Brown raised this issue with the Cabinet Office, Keir Starmer and Keir Starmer's officials, at a minimum, we know for a fact they didn't come clean with Parliament or the public.
Mate, I could not agree more. I have to move. Dan, absolutely nailing it this morning, mate. Really grateful. Dan Hodges from the Mail on Sunday making the point, and here it is. Unfairness is tantamount, it seems, at the moment in this country. It's the word that everybody talks about. Is it unfair that I go to work and pay taxes to allow people seemingly to sit on benefits? Is it fair that I pay for an NHS that seems to look after migrants than myself? Is it fair that people in authority... Let me just read this to you, because this was sent earlier by good old Rob. Send a mother to prison for hurty words, quickly retracted by the sender, Jez, and then flipped to Mandelson and the fact that what he is guilty of carries a life sentence. Insider dealing at this level. He is a despicable character, and our good old PM is right up in the thick of it again. But now watch the denials from all connected, and let's see who comes to defend any of it and understand that they are mental or involved. Send him to prison. He can actually live there, in my opinion. I do think this is a seminal moment for the police. I think it's a seminal moment for our society. Brian, good morning.
Good morning, Jezza. The next time I'm in the magistrate's court for doing 23 mile an hour in a 20 mile an hour zone, I think I'm going to try the Mandelson defence, which is, sorry, I didn't quite know the speed limit, you know, or anything else because I'm gay. Let's see if the magistrates lets me off this time. Cheers, mate. Bye.
Interesting, yes, just got 8:15, 0344 499 1000, text to 87222. Only one story in town, the murky world of Jeffrey Epstein and who was involved. Peter Mandelson facing a criminal investigation for leaking sensitive Downing Street emails and inside information to, oh yes, a convicted paedophile, Jeffrey Epstein, who was still getting messages from Andrew saying, can you send please some some Russian girls over? And his wife, who was saying, can you lend me a few quid because I'm skint? All of that, junior doctor strikes, all of it, all on the plate of Alex Burkhart, Shadow Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, live this morning in windy... Oh, my God, look at him proving his quality as a politician. Good morning, Alex. How are you?
Good morning. I'm a bit wet.
Well, listen...
It's absolutely filthy weather here.
It is, but you see, the boss will be watching this and thinking, good old Burkhart's doing his thing this morning. That's a couple of ticks. Alex, can you put into words, and I don't actually want to make this party political, I would hope that all politicians across every divide shares my abhorrence with Peter Mandelson. He's in every paper this morning, the Dark Lord, pictured in his underpants, which is extraordinary. And just on that picture, without making it anything other than truthful, when he was interviewed by Laura Kunsberg the other day, he said, I didn't really know the sexual side of Jeffrey Epstein's life because I'm a gay man, and yet he's photographed in his underpants with the girl barely dressed on the front of every newspaper. The police have to investigate, don't they, Alex?
Yeah, of course they do. And it's becoming harder and harder to believe anything that Peter Mandelson's ever said. Look, there are a number of things that need to happen at this point. First thing, as you say, police have got to investigate. They've got to do it quickly. The government has to bring forward all of the documentation from 2009, dig it up from the servers, dig it out of the filing cabinets. Let's do this properly and do it quickly. The second thing is very, very important, is that the government has to come clean about how this man was appointed as our ambassador to Washington under this government. Yeah, I don't believe that they didn't know anything about his relationship with Epstein, because we now know that they were fully aware that he'd maintained an unhealthy relationship with Epstein for a very long time. What did the Prime Minister know when he made the appointment? And if the Prime Minister wasn't told the details, well, who kept the details from him? It's just like no one is taking responsibility for this. They're all hiding behind process. Somebody knew what was going on, and somebody, and it may have been the Prime Minister, pushed it to one side. Let's just get it all out in the open. And then the final thing I would say that isn't getting enough press this morning, something that, and I mentioned it in the House of Commons yesterday, something that needs to be looked into is what Mandelson was doing when he was in Washington. Because if he behaved like this when he was last working for the government, then there's absolutely no guarantee he wasn't doing the same thing this time round. And I tell you, we've heard that in February last year, Mandelson introduced the Prime Minister to one of these big American data companies that had been a client of Global Counsel's. Global Counsel is, of course, Mandelson's company. So there's just a lot more to get into here.
I couldn't agree more, and I've said already, you know, if you look from the outside, as the viewers and listeners are doing, They keep coming up the word fairness, Alex, and I've said this to all politicians and will continue to do so. Right. We live seemingly in an increasingly unfair country where migrants get treated better than the indigenous population, and I fear that millions of people will go, if this gets swept under the carpet like that disgusting rape gang inquiry that I don't know how many people are complicit, but it should have happened years ago. I think it's an absolute stain on us. And I think the same thing here. I mean, you've got to question, with a brain cell, if you've got one, anybody listening is going to go, right, so despite the fact he got a dodgy loan and a false mortgage, he was brought back. Despite the fact he gave passports to dodgy businessmen, he was brought back. Exactly. Despite the fact that he apparently and allegedly sold secrets via email to a convicted paedophile, he was brought back. And all of that, and you know, people will say, you just said, maybe Starmer didn't know. I'd make it my bloody business to want to know. It does beg the question, how many people, whatever their political persuasion, have swept this under the carpet? This guy, I mean, a great article by Richard Littlejohn yesterday saying, this guy has had this coming for so long, you would not believe. Do you believe personally, maybe not the Tory party, that the police should and will investigate this?
Yep, I'm told this morning that the police are investigating it, but you know, the important thing is that it's a decent and thorough investigation, and that it looks at all the stuff that you and your listeners have already seen. You know, we've seen the messages sent by Mandelson to Epstein whilst he was a minister. I mean, whilst he was a minister of the Crown, it's an enormous breach of privilege and position to be sending what I understand was market-sensitive information to a man with business contacts all over the world. And I was listening to, on the morning media this morning, I was listening to a financial commentator saying that the information about the fact that a bailout was coming during the Eurozone crisis would have been worth billions to people across the world. And Mandelson appears to have given that information to Epstein before anyone else had it.
And it does, as you quite rightly say, Alex, beg a real question about people who kept giving him jobs and our current Prime Minister, who thought it was all right to have him back. Mate, really appreciate your time. I know it's windy. I hope you survive it out there. Thank you very much indeed. Always good to have him on. Alex Burkhardt, Shadow Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, joining in just complete condemnation on Lord Mandelson. Lord Mandelson? How does that happen? Peter Dark Lord Mandelson. Also Andrew and Fergie embroiled. The Clintons overnight saying they will testify. It does, Dan Hodges made the point, it does beg the question, doesn't it? How did this man achieve such power? Where did he get his money from? And how did he have the ear? Whether it was Trump, whether it was the Clintons, Bill Gates, Elon Musk, Prince Andrew, all of these people in his pocket. And the Mail on Sunday yesterday writing an article that said they believe he was part of a KGB approach to get information. That's where I don't know, we're just throwing it out there. Sean, what do you make of it, my friend?
Morning, Jeremy. Great show. Sean and Leicester. This Andrew and Mandelson thing, if that had been me or any other normal Joe, we would have been sent over to America and questioned. Why is it just because they have been in positions of power that they're protected? Get them over there, get them quizzed, and if they're guilty of anything, get them sent to prison.
individuals allowed to express whatever views they choose. Now, I, as I've said, have never had any links to Tommy Robinson. I don't know him. I've heard what he's saying, and a lot of people do like what he's saying.
Do you like what he says?
But he's not a member of Reform UK, and he's not going to become a member of Reform UK.
Do you like what he says?
I like patriotism, and I like upholding our Christian values in this country, and I would obviously support a government that restored the British way of life, because I think that's been lost at the moment. So, but Nigel Farage is the man to do that, not Tommy Robinson.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 8:27. Ahead of the 9 o'clock news, Matt Gorton, Reform candidate in the Gorton and Denton by-election. He'll be on the show, Goodwin even. We will, of course, be interviewing other candidates in a balanced approach to that by-election before, I think it's February the 26th. At the moment, they say it's between the Greens. I'd love to get her on, Hannah Spencer, the Green candidate. We'll give you all those candidates when we speak to Matt Goodwin ahead of 9 o'clock. Now, let's continue. I mean, of course, we can talk about junior doctors, we can talk about the weather and how bad it is, but there really is only one story in town, which is the tentacles, excuse the awful pun, of this Jeffrey Epstein paedophile bloke. Whether it's political, we've talked about Mandelson and our own ex-Duke of York, royal shame. Delighted to be joined now with a man who's written a fantastic article, page 10 of The Sun today. Matt Wilkinson, a very good morning, royal editor. How are you?
Good morning, Jeremy. I'm very well.
It's extraordinary, this. Will the King take further action on Andrew as the future of the monarchy at risk, you write this morning? Just want to throw this at you to start. Lots of people were clamouring for the King to throw Andrew out of Royal Lodge. Lots of people were saying strip him of his titles. In the end, it obviously became impossible for him to ignore that, despite, you know, it's his brother. They must have known how much is to come, and one wonders how much more.
Well, I think the feeling is, for the first time since this whole Epstein crisis started way back in 2010, that the King and the royal family have maybe got ahead of the crisis a little bit here. They acted in October. They maybe knew that worse was coming down the line, that Epstein files would drop, and of course they're not going to look good for Andrew. So I've been speaking to the palace consistently over the last couple of months and years, and there was a nervousness in around October, November time. There was almost like a panic. There was a worry. What do we do? What do we do? Now they feel that they have actually acted. They feel that they've got ahead of the crisis, and now they are literally watching it day to day and wondering, well, what do we actually need to do now? At the moment, I don't think there is any plans to change on what they decided in October, which is him up to Marsh Farm in Sandringham, paid for by the King, stripped of all his titles and no way back.
Do you believe, Peter Blexley said half an hour ago that the police have to investigate? That'll be pretty unprecedented. I know this is probably a shocking question. If this continues to build, Matt, do you believe that an ex-member of the royal family, the Queen's son, could actually end up going to jail in this country?
Well, the thing with this is that the investigation is currently in the US. So whether Andrew testifies, it's whether he testifies to, you know, US Congress or their investigation. We don't actually have a Met Police investigation at the moment, and I thought it was very interesting that Keir Starmer spoke the other day, and he said that you know, it's up to Andrew whether, or it's up to anybody, if they have information, they should tell the police. I think Starmer was talking there as his former job as the head of the CPS, and that is totally and utterly right. If you have information that may be helpful for an investigation, then you should tell the authorities. Currently, the Met Police aren't investigating, but I'm a little bit spooked or surprised why they haven't, because if you look at one of the allegations that came out, there was another claim that a woman in her 20s was trafficked to see Andrew at Royal Lodge, which is a royal property, and it's happening in the UK. I'm surprised there aren't more calls for the Met Police to investigate.
Well, I have to say there are this morning, mate, in increasing, and I think that without over-egging it, because I've been saying it for 2.5 hours, I think that at the very least the British people, the hard-bashed British people who seem to that word fairness has been central to everybody this morning. His behaviour, Mandelson's behaviour, deserve the Met Police at the very least to hold an investigation, and the establishment have to be careful. I wanted to ask you, in your role as the royal editor, Matt, and a great article, read it, guys, this morning, page 12 of The Sun. The daughters. Now, I got picked up on something by Kinsey Schofield an hour ago, and happy to be so. I came on and I said, look, I actually feel sorry for the daughters in that, you know, they got taken to the island when they were very, very young by their mother. They must be feeling real shame, and that they're going to have to get to a point, I think, where they're going to have to publicly disown both parents. She looked straight down the camera an hour ago and went, yeah, they were 18 and 20, Jez, and in fact, if they're not very careful, they're going to be embroiled in this as well.
Well, the interesting thing is, from the palace's point of view, is that they've really extended the kind of arm of comfort to both Eugenie and Beatrice. I think the King's very fond of them. He's let them keep their titles. They're still, you know, members of the House of York, and they haven't wanted Beatrice and Eugenie to be tainted by the scandals engulfing their parents. While there is no support for Andrew, apart from giving him a new house and giving him some money, there is a lot more support through all tentacles of the royal family for Beatrice and Eugenie, and my impression is that they are hoping that they could move on from this crisis, and it just remains with Andrew and Sarah. I think the aim is from the palace is to ring fence it, really, to not let any other members of the royal family be infected by what you know, the allegations that Andrew faces.
Sadly, they're going to be, though. They're their parents. And let's talk about her. I've met her on several occasions. Her behaviour is equally disgusting. I'm waiting for my daughter to come. I won't even say it on the radio. Come back from a weekend of sex. Please give me money, marry me. She's been absolutely found out on every level. I was reading at the weekend that she's homeless. Her daughters have turned against her. They're getting what they deserve, these two, aren't they, my friend?
Well, that does happen in life, Jeremy. I mean, it's taken a few years, but, you know, we all want to see kind of justice and people get their comeuppance. I mean, again, you know, there is no investigation into Sarah Ferguson, and, you know, she's been very quiet in recent weeks. But again, the royal family have done everything that they can. She isn't a member of the royal family. She isn't a working member of the royal family. She's lost her title. They said back in October that not only has she given up her Duchess title, but she won't be living in a royal property. She was literally Andrew's lodger. And I think that was unpalatable for some members of the royal family for many, many years. And now, despite or contrary to what she hoped, they are not helping her out with any accommodation. So not only, you know, have they done everything to Andrew, but they've actually effectively cut off Sarah Ferguson as well.
And I have to support them in that. Maybe I'm biased as a father of six, and frankly, I'd say to you what I said to Kinsey. I don't care if they're 18 or 8. What mother takes her children, her daughters, to meet or spend time with a convicted paedophile? Let's remember in all of this that this guy had already been to jail for soliciting young girls, and the judgment of all of them, be it money from her or... You said it. There are stories this morning that, you know, he requested another young Russian girl to be sent over by Epstein. I don't think it brings the royal family down. I agree with you on that. I think they've acted, you know, as quickly as they probably could have done. But I genuinely don't see this not ending in a police investigation. Do you know all I can think of, Matty, right? Thank God the Queen's not around to see this. Every day I think about that poor woman and how much we loved her and how much... can you imagine if she was alive to see this?
No, I think she'd be absolutely devastated. I mean, we talk about Andrew being her favourite son, remember? You know, we do talk about Sarah Ferguson being quite close to the late Queen in her later years, but I hate to think, like you do, I hate to think that the Queen... I quite like the fact that she wasn't made aware of all this. You know, I quite like the fact that she wasn't made aware of everything that Sarah and Andrew was embroiled in, because I think she'd feel absolutely let down and devastated by the behaviour of her, or alleged behaviour of her so-called favourite son and his wife.
Just to finish this and let you watch this as well, for people who say, I mean, I had a text from saying until allegations against the former prince show some proof, in my opinion, they should be the police should be putting more effort into the rape gangs inquiry. I think he's had a hardish time. Okay, let's just play a little clip. This is Andrew on staying with Epstein. He said this in 2019. Have a watch, have a listen, peeps.
You were staying at the house of a convicted sex offender.
It was a convenient place to stay.
Sorry? It was a convenient place to stay. Matt, whatever we say and do, that just about sums up Prince Andrew, the ex-prince, doesn't it?
Well, it's interesting when we ask the palace at the moment, you know, what about Andrew testifying, or, you know, what happens to Andrew now, and they say it is a matter for Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, and it is a matter for his conscience. And I think that we do know, we have seen evidence of his conscience in past interviews, so they're leaving it firmly in his hands to make the right decision, but he often doesn't.
Mate, great to have you on. Matt Wilkinson, Royal Editor of The Sun, great piece on page 12 this morning. On the way, we'll talk about an Islamophobia definition. Connie Shaw, Free Speech Union, External Affairs Officer, whatever that means. She's next on Talk Breakfast. Morning, Sarah.
Morning, Jezza. Great show. Just listening to your interview with Dan Hodges, who's talking about Mandelson, yuck, horrible man. And I'm sorry, to pull the gay card is just disrespectful to people who are gay, because, you know, it doesn't make them different as far as seeing anything, feeling anything is concerned. But he's, you know, doing them a disjustice, in my humble opinion.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. 21 minutes to 9 o'clock. So much to come before we finish at 10, including as we look at the Gorton and Denton by-election on February the 26th in Manchester. Matt Goodwin, the Reform candidate, will be on. We will, of course, be inviting all candidates on from all the major parties, including the plumber, Hannah Spencer from the Green Party. Very keen to interview her. 20 minutes to 9. Now, every now and then, there is a story that even I don't understand, actually most of them. So I'm delighted to say good morning to Connie Shaw, spokeswoman for the Free Speech Union. Islamophobia. Can you talk to me about this? Because I'm trying to deal with Mandelson. By the way, Mandelson in his underpants.
Lovely stuff.
I think it's a nappy.
I haven't. This is the first time I'm seeing this photo, and it does.
This is a man, Connie, right? Ready? Look at that picture. This is a man who said, I had no idea what was going on Epstein's Island. Do you want to know why I said that? Because I'm gay. That there he is, stood with a half-naked woman in his underpants. Anyway, you're not here for that. Talk to me about the definition of Islamophobia, because it's not that it confuses me, but a lot of thought to this. Talk to me.
Well, the story is that it's basically the same story that's been going on since the start of when this government has been trying to introduce a state-approved definition of Islamophobia.
Why?
Well, they think that by introducing a definition that it will help stop discrimination against Muslims, but obviously that is already illegal, and we've had a definition, for example, of anti-Semitism for a long time, and that hasn't resulted in the decline of anti-Semitism. In fact, we've seen a massive increase in anti-Semitism. Having a definition of something that is already illegal to do is confusing as to why it's necessary. But the current story is that it's, again, free speech campaigners, including other faith groups, including a Muslim group founded by Fayez Magool, Tel Mama. He's been campaigning against anti-Muslim hatred for a very long time. They are concerned that this definition, which the government has rebranded as an anti-Muslim hostility, they think that by rebranding it with this name, that all of the free speech concerns will disappear. But actually, there are still many concerns about the leaks that we've seen of the definition, which still conflate Islam, a religion, an ideology, with race. Now, that will mean that conversations about the religion itself, about Islamic extremism and cultural practices that some Muslims participate in, the criticisms of those under this definition will easily be able to be labelled as racist. I mean, even yesterday, the Conservative MP Rebecca Poole at the Women and Equalities Committee, her report on the abuse that Muslim women are more likely to face within their own communities was buried by the committee, despite the fact that they took evidence from the Muslim Council of Britain, which the government has a policy with, that they don't interact with them because of their links to extremism. But they haven't taken these recommendations from Rebecca Poole, and the irony is we already have a culturally functioning definition of Islamophobia.
Can I ask you a question, because you're far more intelligent than me? Imagine the thickest 60-year-old man, right, who could be your dad, just asking you this question, and don't humour me, but just bear with me. The government wanted to come up with a new definition of Islamophobia because that would help how Muslims are treated.
Yes, that's
and now a whole bunch of people, including Muslims, are saying that's not the right definition. You make a really good analogy about anti-Semitism, which is rife in this bleeding country. Would it not be fair to say, Connie, that this is yet more window dressing by a government who seems to spend its time not doing anything that I would say is substantive and important? They make comments, they give away the Che asylum, they give away money. But can I ask you, without being slagged, why don't we just work on stopping racism, whether it's anti-Semitism or Islamist, whatever it is? Why are we spending time on some bloody definition? Am I sounding old, or am I making sense here? Because it's ludicrous, man.
No, I would agree that it is virtue signalling. As you say, it's already illegal to discriminate against someone because of their race or religion. We don't need another definition.
Is this him just pandering to the Muslim vote, do you think?
I understand that theory, but also the other thing that I think it is certainly something that it's a reasonable assumption, I think, but I think that one of the most concerning aspects of this, which people don't talk about very much, is that this definition will really impact people who leave the religion of Islam. And we've had cases at the Free Speech Union of, for example, one of our members, Daya, he claimed asylum in this country from Iraq, and he had left Islam and he's converted to Christianity. And he, like Hamid Koskin, decided to protest against the religion of Islam, and he burnt his own copy that he had bought of the Quran, and he was arrested for that and told that that was a hate crime in this country, and we helped him and he got off. But he says that he feels like he was still in Iraq even though he fled to Britain for his religious freedom and freedom of speech. And he told us when we interviewed him recently that if this government brings in this definition, he may have to look to flee to another country.
Do you know, I actually love, it's like the Sex Matters organisation and the Free Speech Union do so much good, but you do, I mean, you do sort of, if you're me, the older generation, think, with everything that's going on in the world, being stuck on the definition of something or not wanting to offend somebody, or have I written down, God, I sound like my dad, the right pronouns and all that is so frustrating when half of the world's at war. We've got bent cabinet ministers taking bungs allegedly from paedophiles. We've got members of the royal family in utter disgrace. We've got people, veterans, living on the streets. We've got, do you know what I mean? And you think, why do these politicians spend so much time, right, figuring out or trying to figure out stuff that I'm sure I get the free speech thing, massively important, but it doesn't really, to me, just get on with it. Just, you're right, racism is abhorrent on all levels, whatever the colour of your skin, anti-Semitism, anti-Muslim, anything, right? Do you see where I'm coming from?
Absolutely, and I can understand why the public are absolutely frustrated with this. As you say, we just need to get on with making sure that our current laws, which already make sure that all of this is illegal, are used. We don't need a state-approved definition. The last time there was a state-approved definition of Islamophobia. It saw people like Trevor Phillips being expelled from the Labour Party or suspended from the Labour Party because of his comments. This term Islamophobia, whilst the government has repackaged this definition as anti-Muslim hatred, but it's still going with the presumption that to criticise Islam or to talk about cultural practices that are harmful. I mean, I would say that it's going to be Muslim women themselves who are going to be part of the group who are most affected by having this definition in place, this fear around criticising certain cultural practices, because they are the ones that don't often have a voice, and people who, and Muslims themselves, who want to criticise extremist parts of Islam. The government really do need to get their priorities straight. You're absolutely right, and it is a waste of time, and I would not be surprised after hopefully the jury trials become the 14th U-turn that this becomes the 15th.
I very much hope so. God, do you want to? She should do the show. You're brilliant. Thank you so much indeed. Connie Shaw, spokeswoman for the Free Speech Union. We'll get you on again. I'm with you. Just can we concentrate on the important things? Thank you very much indeed. 13 minutes to 9. Now, you will know February the 26th, the Gorton and Denton by-election in Manchester, an area I know very well, is taking place. We're about to speak to the Reform candidate, Reform UK for Gorton and Denton, Matt Goodwin. Can I stress, and this is really important, let me just read out the other candidates. Matt standing for Reform, of course, Nick Buckley for Advance UK, Charlotte Cadden for the Conservative Party, Angelica Stoggia for the Labour Party, Matt, as we've said, for Reform, Sebastian Moore for the Social Democratic Party, Joseph Omiche for Rejoin the EU, Jackie Pearcey for the Liberal Democrats, and Hannah Spencer for the Green Party. We will, of course, be inviting all the candidates from all the major parties to come and talk to us, but we'll kick off today by saying a very good morning to Matt Goodwin. Matt, how are you?
Good morning, Jeremy. Good to be with you.
Great. So, right there in the Lion's Den, day one, that a surprise announcement last week. Do me a favour. Door to door, what are punters saying? I know about how parties put themselves out there, but what are the real concerns of the punters when the door opens and they see the candidate in front of them, my friend?
Well, I can tell you, Jeremy, because I've knocked on thousands of doors over the last week, and I can't tell you how many people I've spoken to, but I would say cost of living, number one, immigration, number two. I think underneath all of it is a sense of just Labour neglect. Labour has had this area for about a century. There's a real sense of frustration with how Labour politicians have treated people here. There's a very big scandal, Jeremy, locally called the Trigger Me Timbers scandal, which is where a bunch of Labour politicians were found to have been basically slating their own voters in a WhatsApp group. I can't explain to you how much that is talked about here. And then you've got, antisocial behaviour, you've got kids with nothing to do, you've got small businesses, Jeremy, getting absolutely clobbered by big taxes, big regulation, national insurance hikes, you've got the vape shops, you've got the barber shops. So a lot of the problems you see in other working class towns and communities are definitely here. But of course, this is outer Manchester, so there's also that sense that Gorton and Denton, and I think it's right, the people here are not getting the same level of attention as people in other areas.
It's quite interesting when you talk about candidates, and I make the point, you all know that as a broadcaster, we will invite all the candidates on and do it in as balanced a way as possible. I was wondering when you stood about your Manchester connections, and I saw an interview that you did at the weekend about your grandfather. I thought that was quite poignant. So the area, because one of the big criticisms of politicians is they'll just land in an area and stand. You have real connections to Manchester, right?
Yeah, I've had a very strange week, Jeremy. I'm not going to lie to you. I'll just tell you as it is. I came into this campaign and I said to the people of Gorton and Denton, look, my family grew up down the road in Salford. I used to work in this seat when I was at university. I went to university in Manchester. The University of Manchester gave me my first proper job. So, to me, Manchester feels like home. It's a central part of my life. The Labour Party, for some reason, decided to go on the attack about that, trying to make out I didn't have any links to Manchester, which is absolutely nonsense. And then, as you see with the other candidates, there's been a lot of talk of Gaza. There's been a lot of talk about what's going on in the Labour Party, but there's not a lot of talk about Gorton and Denton. And what I'm saying to people is, look, we are, and I really do believe this, we're the only positive, optimistic campaign that is focusing on local issues, focusing on local people. We're talking about this area. And I'm saying to people on the doorstep, you don't have to believe in everything that I say. You don't have to agree 100% with me on all of the issues. You don't have to agree 100% with reform. But what I think you do have to agree with me on is that this area deserves a lot better than what it's got over the last 50 years. And that is a message that I think is resonating with people, because they know they've been left behind, they've been looked past, and to be honest, they've been treated with contempt by Labour politicians like Andrew Gwynn and others. And I'm just quite tired of this Labour morality play. Look at yesterday, Jeremy, 24 hours, we've got a Labour MP getting charged with rape. We've got another Labour MP that's been given more charges in Bangladesh, and we've got another big Labour heavyweight being found to have more links with a known paedophile. And the Labour Party is positioning itself as a party of morality. Give me a break. I think these people deserve much better than what they've had over the last 50 years.
You've made a point, Matt, and Reform was saying that if I win, Starmer will resign. You've made February the 26th, from a Reform point of view, almost a referendum on a man whose popularity is, and I'm going to tell you this because it's balanced, his popularity rating is lower than Maduro's was when he was taken out of Venezuela by Donald Trump. I mean, it's beneath the floorboards. Do you believe that you made the point about Gaza as well? It's really important, this. Do you believe the people of Gorton and Denton are more interested in the local things? You said economy, which I think is really interesting. Getting in amongst the people is the most important thing. Gaza, yes, we've seen that, and it's a difficult one for Labour. But the mudslinging, it's going to get worse, isn't it, Kidder?
Yeah, for sure. I'm getting attacked on all sides. I'm getting attacked by Labour. I'm getting attacked by the Greens. To be honest with you, I'm getting attacked by parts of the media who can't sort of comprehend the fact that I might want to overturn the consensus that has pushed this country into managed decline. But, you know, that's fine. The issue with this area and Labour, I think fundamentally what's happened is the Labour Party turned inward and away from working people. I spoke to a lady yesterday in Denton, all right? She was 70, 75. She opened the door. She said, no one has knocked on my door in 34 years. Now, this, you know, we hear this during elections, but actually in some areas here it's true. Labour have not actually been knocking on doors saying to people, what's the matter? What are your concerns? The Greens, all I've heard from the Greens up here locally, Jeremy, is Gaza, 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 Gaza. Now, I think, you know, and I'm the one who's accused of division. Now, I think
Keir Starmer said that you were pursuing a politics of toxic division when you were released or unveiled as the by-election candidate. Toxic division, Matt.
So I put out a little video on this yesterday because I think there is nothing more divisive than treating people like the Labour Party has treated the people of Gorton and Denton. They are putting HMOs, homes for illegal migrants, into these communities. We've got 20 of them, Jeremy, in Denton. Nobody asked for that. Nobody voted for that. There's nothing more divisive than laughing about your own voters in WhatsApp groups. Labour did that. There's nothing more divisive than lying to voters about not putting up taxes and then doing it. I spoke to a family-run firm, a plumbing business here in Denton, about to go under because the guy says it's impossible to hire people. Labour doesn't know how to run a business. It's impossible to pay the bills. The energy bills are through the roof. Labour will not budge an inch on net zero. You know, so, and I get all this talk about, well, you're being divisive. I'm the only one who's actually saying unequivocally, white, black, Asian, non-Muslim, Muslim, Sikh, Hindu, whatever, if you want to put the people of Gorton and Denton first, if you actually want to put this area first, come and join my optimistic, positive campaign. We will make history together. We will take this seat from Labour for the first time in a century. Winston Churchill, I think, tried to win this seat and he failed to do it. We will do it together. The people will do it together against this Labour Party, the most unpopular government in polling history, the most unpopular Prime Minister, Jeremy, in polling history. And yes, I do think Starmer will resign if we win here, because it will be so utterly embarrassing. It will be unbearable for Number 10 after the fiasco over Andy Burnham. I think there's a real opportunity for us here.
Very quickly, you know the job. You've only got 15 seconds. Why politics from the safety of a TV studio?
Just to help the people make a difference. I had a very comfortable job, Jeremy. I didn't need to do this. We've got to turn this country around. We've got to save Britain.
Good man. Good luck. Matt Goodwin, of course, the Reform candidate. We've named the others. And this slot will be the slot where we interview all the by-election candidates for Gorton Denton, February the 26th, OK? That was Matt Goodwin. We'll speak to Hannah Spencer from the Greens, Jackie Pearce, the Liberal Democrats, all of the candidates. It's all listed on screen there. We will do that before the big day on February the 26th. News at 9 next. Yes, talk.
Does Keir Starmer have blood on his hands?
Yes, he does. I hope he lives with that for the rest of his life. It's not just my child he's taken away. These poor innocent children that are getting raped daily, may I add. These poor women like Rhiannon that are getting murdered. He and all the other people that agree with this, they have those people's blood on their hands.
29 years, is that enough?
Nothing will ever be enough.
Okay. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Great job. Morning, Jez, mate. Gaz from Pontefract. I am looking forward to Prime Minister's questions tomorrow to see Starmer blinking his head off,
and thank you very much
looking startled and hopefully getting a good going over by Kemi. You know, he stands there and he has this. He'll say to the Tories, he'll accuse the Tories of losing control of the borders with a straight face. He'll accuse the Tories of past sleaze with a straight face. And all we've known in this Starmer government is sleaze and losing control of borders. You know, it's mad. Anyway, you know this. Have a good day, mate.
Good man, almost 9 o'clock. We're live across the UK. Talk Breakfast is on 0344 499 1000. If you want to be on, you want to send a voice now, 87222 with a text. We're talking Mandelson, we're talking Andrew, we're talking Sarah, we're talking juniors, doctor strikes, migrant maggots, all with Isabel Oakeshott, Talk's international editor. Next, after the news at 9.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Just gone 9 o'clock. You are with Talk, of course, the home of common sense, free speech. It's where alarm clock Brits, where the working man and woman comes to speak. Have your say in the next hour ahead of Julia on 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. You waking up to that. It's just one word, isn't there? Epstein. It's everywhere. His tentacles. Revolting word, I know. Police looking at getting involved. The allegations overnight that Peter Mandelson committed a criminal offence by leaking sensitive Downing Street emails and inside information to Jeffrey Epstein after being convicted. This man has been sacked 3 times and brought back. He was made the US ambassador, unbelievably, by our Prime Minister, who what? Didn't know? Wasn't told? Cover-ups? What does it smell like? Andrew, Fergie. It's just non-ending. The Clintons overnight agreeing to testify in Congress. Domestically, junior doctors. Thanks very much for the 28.9% a year ago, but we're starving. Oh, yeah. Right, well, we'll give you some more then. All of that, so much more. We just spoke to Matt Goodwin, of course, Reform candidate in Gorton and Denton. And just to repeat, 10 to 9. For the next couple of weeks, we will be putting all the main candidates. I want them all to come on. The list is there on screen. Hannah Spencer for the Greens, Jackie Pearcey for the Lib Dems, Joseph Omiche for Rejoins, Sebastian Moore, the Social Democratic Party, Matt from Reform there, Angelica Stoja from the Labour Party, Charlotte Cadden from the Tories, and Nick Buckley for Advance UK. We will offer each and every one of them to come on this show. Whether they accept or not, I've absolutely no idea. 9:05, let's say a very good morning to the First Lady of Talk. That's what it says here. Isabel Oakeshott, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I am pretty well, actually, trying to keep up with this endless slew of revelations about Mandelson and Andrew and Epstein. Wow.
Let's start with Mandelson. I just want to play you a clip when asked by Laura Kunsberg why he hadn't been more aware of the depraved sexual activities taking place on his island. This is what he said, Isabel Oakeshott.
Possibly some people will think because that I'm a gay man, I was sort of insensitised or I wasn't attuned to what was going on. I don't really accept that. I think the issue is that because I was a gay man in his circle, I was kept separate from what he was doing in the sexual side of his life.
Yes, so much so that on the front of every paper today, he stood in his white underpants, Isabel Oakeshott, with a scantily clad woman. He's some piece of work, isn't he?
I mean, he really is. I mean, that is just so disingenuous as to be laughable, trying to use his sexuality as some kind of cover for this. I mean, I don't know about what kind of house parties you go to, Jeremy. I certainly don't go to any where it's normal for anyone to walk around in their pants. I don't think the vast majority of people behave in that manner. And the idea that someone as intelligent as Mandelson couldn't see what was going on before his very eyes is completely and utterly ludicrous. And this man is clearly so broken by, or rather maybe he isn't broken. There's still that streak of arrogance there, isn't there? But the arrogance seems to have blinded him to the fact that we can see what went on here. All of us can see, and there is no point in him continuing to peddle these falsehoods.
Couldn't agree more. And then you look at the political situation, of course. You look at the fact that, and I'll keep saying this for a reason, this was a man who was originally sacked from the cabinet for a fraudulent mortgage claim after a loan from a fellow Tory MP, Geoffrey Robinson. Went to the wilderness for a couple of years, still obviously massively influential. Brought back by Blair as the Northern Ireland Secretary, had to resign again because he got passports issued for his dodgy business associates from India. Then the most shocking thing is, and on-screen Gordon Brown, and I'm going to say something you might disagree with. I didn't agree with much of Gordon Brown, but I think there's integrity there. Whether he was under pressure to bring him back, I don't know. But Gordon Brown, 5 months ago, contacted the Cabinet Office 5 months ago and said, I've got real reservations about what Mandelson was up to at that time. They ignored him. Starmer, also presumably ignoring any advice, brought him back as the US ambassador, the UK ambassador to America. How much has he got? Well, how much has he got on everybody, Isabel? Because it's extraordinary how many lives he's had.
It is absolutely true, and I couldn't believe it when he was brought back. You know, you can't just keep making the same political misjudgments again and again. Mandelson, as you've just outlined there, had already not once but twice proven himself a total political liability, and yet Keir Starmer went for it a third time. Just unbelievable. But there's something else, and it's an important thing that I want to share with you this morning, Jeremy. So the political side of what's happened has moved to a possible police investigation into the leaking of sensitive market information by Mandelson to Jeffrey Epstein at the time of the financial crisis. Now, this prompted me to remember that some years ago I obtained a cache of private emails between Prince Andrew and a number of people. And within those emails, it is clear that Prince Andrew was also leaking sensitive market information to people who could benefit from that information, private friends of his. So how far did this go? You know, Andrew, Epstein, Mandelson, all obtaining information that was sensitive and using it for their own benefit. This is a much wider scandal. And once again, Prince Andrew's fingerprints are all over it.
For me, you make a really interesting point, and I am not defending Andrew at all. I think he's an entitled lowlife who has got or is about to get his just desserts, and I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't end up in prison. And I absolutely mean that. I feel sorry to a degree for his daughters, but I want to bring it back to Epstein. And it was really interesting in the Mail on Sunday, the weekend, and they were talking about, I mean, you'd read it and you'd think this is conspiratorial. They say that Epstein was the front for a KGB honey trap conspiracy, if you like, where he would, through all of this money and all of these contacts, because God knows where he got his money from, he would spend his life procuring important people and feeding them information or getting stuff off them. Presidents, because let's not forget, Donald Trump was mentioned 3,000 times in those latest emails. The Clintons have overnight agreed to testify. You've got Bill Gates, you've got Elon Musk. It's extraordinary the power, the influence this man had. The one thing the viewers and listeners have said this morning, though, Isabel, is they demand that this isn't a cover-up. But you look at the grooming gangs inquiry and you don't hold out much hope, do you? Because the establishment always seems to look out for itself in the end, doesn't it?
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, I don't think there can be any cover-up. It's all out there, isn't it? In extraordinary, lurid technicolor. You know, nothing is being covered up. That is the shocking aspect of this, that all these thousands of emails and images are being released, and we are seeing behind the scenes and some pretty distasteful at best goings on. You know, what Epstein was a master networker at the highest level. You know, you see him greasing around in Davos with entitled people, with royalty, with presidents, with prime ministers. And it's beyond murky. You know, these suggestions of involvements with Mossad and so on. Oh, yes, and then there was a mentioning of Putin and potential meetings with Putin and Russian assets. You kind of couldn't make this, well, you really couldn't make it up. If you did, no one would believe it would remotely be possible to have such an entangled web. And then there's a whole thing of, did he really die? Did he really commit suicide? I'm not sure that's such a conspiracy either when you see the scale of what's gone on.
Where does it end? Quite a direct question, loads to talk to you about. Does Lord Mandelson, when stripped, not into his underpants, when stripped of his title, does he go to prison?
Well, leaking market-sensitive information is actually a criminal offence if you're in a, you know, government position. Life sentence. I struggle to see that. It's quite unusual for so-called white-collar crime to carry that kind of punishment. But let's not forget how unusual it is to be stripped of a peerage. And I can't actually, it's really difficult. You know, it actually requires, I think, sort of legislation. I can't think of a case. There's been plenty of cases where there have been calls for people to be stripped of a peerage. I'm thinking of Michelle Mone, so-called Baroness Bra, with all those allegations of corruption in relation to COVID contracts. She's still a baroness. She's still a member of the House of Lords. So it's highly unusual. And this would be an immense public shaming. Not that he really needs any more shame. It's
Does he go to jail? Yes or no? Do you think?
I don't think so. Does
Andrew go to jail?
I don't think so. I'm sure no in Andrew's case. Although you know, this story is so wild. You'd be a fool to make any very cast iron predictions. But I think that there is no way that the royal family would see that happen, and I don't think any government would want to in any way collaborate with the jailing of the late Queen's favourite son. I just can't, realistically, I can't see that happening. Mandelson, I think, is more of a vulnerability on the jail time front, but again, I do feel that is a bit of a distant prospect.
What about the Clintons agreeing to testify? That's shocking, isn't it? Bit of pressure there.
I mean, this whole thing, you know, who's wheeling out of these absolute titans of politics from whatever it was, you know, nearly 15 years ago type thing now. And I just don't know what further more may come out of it. It seems like there's bodies everywhere, doesn't it? Political bodies everywhere.
I don't think it's going to go away, and I think it's going to become... it's just going to be a story that's going to get murkier and murkier. And the only thing I've ever said about Andrew, and by the way, I've no time for him, I think he's a totally revolting, entitled little prig, but... it all has seemed at this point to be on him. Obviously in other countries as well. But you have to think about the breadth of it. You think about, like I said, Elon Musk, Bill Gates, Bill Clinton. Who else is involved in this? Let's bring it domestically if we can. Watch her face, listen to her voice. Junior doctors have voted to keep striking until the summer. Members of the BMA have said, thank you very much indeed for the 28.9% you gave us a year ago. Oh, did you not, Wes Streeting, ask for anything in return? No, you didn't. So I think we might come back again because we're starving. Can you imagine a private sector business that gives anybody nigh on approaching 28.9% and then would keep you on if you went back for more?
Unbelievable. I mean, we'd all like a 28% pay rise, wouldn't we? I mean, that is just not a thing in the private sector. I am getting so sick of the lie that keeps being peddled about our NHS, that this is really the only system that taxpayers are entitled to have, and the only system that is desirable for patients. You know, politicians keep on pushing this lie, and I think it is completely cruel. Every single day, there are tragic and shocking examples of appalling care on the NHS, and part of that is exacerbated by the behaviour of those healthcare professionals that see fit to go on strike. Every day, of course, there are also examples of wonderful care on the NHS, but that isn't good enough. Why should it be a lottery the whole time? And pity the patients that go into hospitals needing urgent treatment, and then there are not enough doctors. There aren't enough at the best of times, but if we've got doctors standing out on picket lines, that just makes a bad situation very much worse.
There's always been support for the junior. They like to be called resident doctors, although they're never there. I think that's waning. And I think I'm with you. I mean, I've always believed for many years, which isn't very popular, but then you and I don't do popular, that the NHS needs to be taken off its pedestal and people need to take their rose-tinted spectacles off. We have a much older population. We have a much larger population. We unfortunately seem to offer service to anybody who comes to this country or any bugger who hasn't paid into it, to the detriment of people who have. And I think it's, you know, you always hear the argument, don't you, Isabel, about, oh, it gets too much money and it's about DEI. I think they need to start again and knock it off its pedestal. The concept's fantastic. It doesn't damn well work. There are too many stories of people missing out. And I had one personally. My eldest daughter was telling me her father-in-law was rushed in the other day. Her stepdad's father was rushed in a really chronic way, just left in the corridor for 18 hours until they arrived. Literally in agony, being sick, problems with his stomach, just left there with some towels. Absolutely outrageous. Paid tax all his life. Ridiculous.
It is completely disgusting. And there are cases like that every single day, often very elderly, very, very weak people who are in no position to advocate for themselves, to fight for better treatment. Now, if they're lucky, they've got relatives who stand up and make a fuss and push and push and push to get their loved ones off those trolleys in corridors and into some kind of dignified setting. But the idea that we are lucky to have a system that continually delivers care of that substandard quality is completely for the birds. And I don't think many people, I really don't think many voters continue to believe it, actually. I think the NHS is no longer on its pedestal, but it is politicians who keep on trying to frighten people into thinking that if we didn't have the NHS exactly as it is now, then we'd all have to pay insurance and we'd turn up at hospital with our heads falling off and be told to hand over our credit card before we got emergency care. That is a total and utter lie. The vast majority of countries as rich as ours, or equivalent countries to ours, deliver very good health care with a different funding model that does not require patients to hand over a credit card in the A&E department.
How do you, I mean, while we're on it, what is the improvement? How do you do it quickly? What is the answer? More money, less money, more organisation, less...
It isn't actually about more money. It's about the existing money reaching the right places and being managed efficiently. I mean, the waste and inefficiency in the NHS is absolutely off the dial. It's that whole thing where those in charge of budgets seem to think that if it's public money, it's not real money. So there's that. It just needs a whole different funding model. That doesn't mean more money, and it doesn't mean, crucially, taxpayers finding that they are not able to obtain healthcare that is free at the point of delivery. You only have to look at systems in France, in Germany, in Israel, in so many other comparable countries. They cannot believe the type of healthcare that we have. They can't believe that people would be left on trolleys. They can't believe that elderly gentlemen...
It doesn't make any sense. It's abhorrent. Before you go, we love taking a call together, don't we, Isabel? Say yes, Jeremy.
We do, Jeremy.
Brilliant. Dan in Liverpool, good morning. Isabel Oakeshot's with me. How are you?
Oh, good morning, Jeremy. May I say, has Richard Tice got you that ring yet, Isabel?
Has he got me the ring? Absolutely not. However, we did go looking, and we found one, but unfortunately, it was concluded that it would not meet the Jeremy Kyle test as not being quite big enough.
Right, so sorry, I was going to talk about Operation Ring at the end. There was me being professional. This has been brought up by Dan in Liverpool. So Richard Tice proposed to you on one knee on Boxing Day, took him till New Year's Eve to get back up again. A man with a few quid, not. He has not, as yet, ladies and gentlemen, February, bought a ring, but you've just announced you went ring shopping. What, at the weekend?
We did, yeah. We had a bit of a look around and we found something.
Did you go to my little man down by Jumeirah that I gave him the number of? Did you go there?
Well, we were actually in the very romantic city of Vienna, which is a lovely place to look at jewellery. But we didn't find anything that quite ticked the box. And when we found this lovely little ring, I think we both concluded that you, I'm afraid, Jeremy, would not have approved. It just wasn't quite sparkly enough.
Isabel, you need to go as big as possible. Right, Dan, back to you, mate. Thanks for bringing that up.
Jeremy, I really want to know, and I want you to convince me, why shouldn't I phone my manager right now, leave my job and go on the dole? Because right now it feels that in this country, unless you're, and I'm really sorry if this upsets people, unless you're a child killer, mother killer, MP or child paedophile, the government will bend over backwards for you, where people like me, we want to go around. I climb poles every time. I don't know if that pole's going to fall down and I'm going to end up having a phone call to my wife and kids saying, oh, sorry, your husband's dead because one of the telephone poles snapped on him. What's going on with this country?
I have to say, Dan, I appreciate the call. Isabel, I know the line's not great, but this is on the back, right, of a study at the weekend that told us that more than 6 million working Brits underlined would be better off giving up and going on benefits. And in that moment, you say to yourself, for Christ's sake, it was not meant to be a career choice. It was supposed to be a safety net for those less fortunate. Benefits Britain is the real reason we're on our arse. And nobody, it seems, is courageous enough to admit that and do something about it. There are feckless, lazy people who need calling out.
Can I put it a different way? That a benefit system shouldn't just be a safety net, it should be a trampoline. It should be something you can bounce back up from. And other countries, again, seem more than capable of operating systems that are designed only to look after people for as long as they truly need it. Not cruel systems that disadvantage people who've got epilepsy or cancer or other serious conditions, but systems in which citizens pay in and they get out what they pay in and only more than what they've paid in cases of true need. And there is not a kind of culture in the most successful economies of people choosing welfare as some kind of lifestyle choice.
Completely agree. Operation Ring will continue. We might need to speak to you several times this week because I'm getting quite traumatised about the lack of an engagement ring. I mean, I know what's going on here. He's just taking his time because he's tight and because he doesn't want to commit. I think you should dump him.
No. Oh, wow. OK, I'll pass that on. We'll see what reaction we get.
I don't mean that at all, but he needs to pull his finger out. Honestly, he's going to be left behind. Isabel, thank you very much indeed. What is it, 9:25? We're live across the UK. Isabel Oakeshott there ahead of 10 o'clock. Dr Aaron Ghosh, our resident doctor, talking about junior doctors. Don't think he agrees. And Mark Stevens, human rights lawyer, talking about Mandelson and everything to do with misconduct in public office. A human rights lawyer. Are you having a laugh? 9:25. Back in 3.
I have a message tonight for the incredible people of Greenland. And if you choose, we welcome you into the United States of America.
That is why I said the use of tariffs against allies is completely wrong.
You know, the fact that they had a boat land there 500 years ago doesn't mean that they own the land. We're not going to have Russia or China occupy Greenland. So we're going to be doing something with Greenland either the nice way or the more difficult way.
Any decision about the future status of Greenland belongs to the people of Greenland and the Kingdom of Denmark alone.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 9:27. Julia from 10 o'clock this morning and Ian Collins from 1 o'clock this afternoon. 0344 4101000 for talk. Your text to 87222. We're talking about the NHS then with Isabel, the junior doctors going on strike. Dale, good morning.
Jeremy, hi, it's Dale from Stenning. Isabel Oakeshott just speaks sense all the time. The NHS funding model needs to change, and like she said, the amount of money does not. However, what else does need to change is the middle management. You don't need somebody looking after a budget and then somebody looking after that person who's looking after a budget and then another person looking after that person who looks after that person to look after a budget. Get rid of the middle management and six-figure salaries, and everything will tie into place. But it's the middle management, and it's the different versions of middle management, and it's these diversity managers that it's just ridiculous.
Couldn't agree more. Dale in Stenning, thank you. On the NHS, half an hour ago, whatever you want to talk about, Graham in Birmingham says if MI5, the media, the press and the public knew about Andrew and, of course, his brother Charles and his late mother, the Queen knew what was going on. The royal family is complicit. And remember, the Queen paid $12 million to Virginia Giuffre to keep her quiet. I won't have anybody slag the quid off. I think she'd be turning in a grave, but there we go. Kaz from Kenton. So whether Mandy was gay or not, I like the way he says was gay. He said I was gay. Sorry, is this just a phase, Pete? Or are you just... Because a lot of people, it doesn't justify he was in his pants with a woman in a bathroom. Is he using the gay thing to get out of this, is Kaz in Denton. I couldn't agree more. New headline online in the Mail that I have to draw your attention to. This is Peter Mandelson. I have no idea what I was doing in my pants in master manipulator's Epstein's Paris apartment, says Mandelson, as he compares paedophile to dog muck. Right, well, you know what happens if you play with dogs. If you lay down with dogs, you get covered in... Yeah, there you do. Peter Mandelson, dodgy as anything. Right, I'm looking forward to this, Ish. Mark Stevens, human rights lawyer. Very good morning. Welcome to Talk.
Morning, Jeremy.
Right, now, do me a favour. I don't want to... Because I want to get off on the right foot. If you were approached by Peter Mandelson or Prince Andrew, well, Andrew, yeah, would you take the case on?
I think I'd certainly have to think about it very carefully. I mean, these last 24 hours have turned discomfort into a crisis, and I don't think we've seen the start of it yet. I mean, for example, if these documents that Mandelson is supposed to have shared with Jeffrey Epstein could really fall into the category of misconduct in public office, which can be a criminal offence. And you don't have to have sort of corruption in the Hollywood sense. All it requires is a minister acting without a reasonable excuse in a way that harms the public interest. So I imagine that investigators are going to be looking closely at that. And whilst as a lawyer, I'm prepared to take any brief pretty much, obviously I can't mislead the court.
Police are reviewing allegations that Mandelson committed a criminal offence by leaking sensitive Downing Street emails whilst he was brought back into power by the then Prime Minister Gordon Brown, and inside information about the markets and the state of markets to the paedophile Epstein. Now, you've got a sense of humour, haven't you, Mark?
Yep.
So what sort of completely obscure law from the ECHR would a human rights lawyer find to get Peter Mandelson off if he was prosecuted?
Well, even human rights lawyers usually work to principle. I appreciate that the principle.
Not all of them, but come on, not all of them, Mark. Sorry, there's too many migrant stories I've heard, you know. What was it this morning? Let me throw this at you, human rights lawyer. Ready? An Albanian thief with a human rights lawyer has escaped deportation after saying to a judge who's obviously got 2 brain cells, no, I didn't, my husband made me steal it, so you can't send me back. And the judge went, OK. That is bloody ridiculous. Come on.
Yeah, it does sound a bit silly. But I think, you know, where we would come out as a defence lawyer, you know, the police are going to be looked at what was exactly leaked, whether it was genuinely confidential. At the moment, we have a suspicion that it might be, and whether Epstein had any commercial strategic interest in receiving it. All of which I think is up for grabs.
Yeah.
The question isn't really whether Epstein asked for the memo, it's whether Mandelson had any legitimate reason in sharing it with him.
Somebody sent me a text earlier.
That is, I think, the loose thread here that is going to get pulled.
Somebody sent a text to me earlier, and you can answer this, you're the expert. Divulging, it's like inside information. It's is it a life sentence? Genuine question.
I don't think it's life, but it's certainly a sort of 10-year sentence. It can be very, very serious.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think, if the allegations are true, this wasn't gossip that was being shared. It was leaking the Prime Minister's briefing to a convicted sex offender. It's the sort of thing that we call misfeasance in public office. But, you know, you can survive bad judgment in politics, but you don't survive sharing government secrets. And, you know, whether it was criminal, we'll yet to find out, I suspect, after the police investigation. It was certainly catastrophic judgment, wasn't it?
Interesting. Linda from Stalybridge, and I was going to ask you this, and some people would go, what? She said, just a question to your lawyer friend with Mandelson, if he sent legal documents from government to Epstein, isn't that treason?
No, it's not, unless they fall within a particular category and are a particular type of document. Obviously, as a minister, he will have signed the Official Secrets Act.
Yes.
I don't think there's any suggestion that he breached the Official Secrets Act. That doesn't seem to be the allegation here. The allegation seems to be that he's sharing sensitive stuff which Epstein had no decent reason to receive. And I think, you know, if he did do that, then that's misconduct in a public office. You know, it's really a test based on whether he abused the trust that we as the public repose in ministers by sharing information wholly outside government without good reason.
We'll move the thing quickly, my friend. You're my favourite human rights lawyer ever, and I never thought I'd say that. The only human rights lawyer with a spring in his step and his hat.
It's a limited field.
Well, it is really when you defend people who shouldn't be in this country, but I'll take you to task on that. Andrew's a different kettle of fish. Well, he's not a different kettle of fish. He's a horrible, entitled human being. His world is unravelling as well, no longer titled, ostracised quite rightly. I know that people all morning have gone, what? Can you see a member or even an ex-member of the royal family being convicted in court at any time soon, Mark Stevens?
I can see it happening. I don't think it's close in any way, shape or form. Again, whilst it's misjudgment on the part of Andrew, that's obviously very clear, and it does also seem that his memory is incredibly fallible, because here's yet another woman that he's gallivanting on the floor with. I do think it may not be a criminal offence. I mean, that's a difficulty. He's obviously got political embarrassment. He's been asked to go by the Prime Minister and the Senate in America to go and testify.
He's not going to do that, though, is he? He's not going to go to America.
He's not going to, because they can't compel him, because he's based here. They can only compel American citizens. And I suspect when he got there, he would feel his lawyer's advice would be to take the fifth, to invoke the privilege against self-incrimination. And so in those circumstances, I think he's never going to go, however embarrassing that is. But I mean, you know, we've got to remember the survivors in this. You know, whilst the transparency, every step of the transparency validates what they've said for years, and that Epstein's influence was systemic and protected and tolerated. The DOJ have themselves created problems for those women, those survivors of the abuse of Epstein. They've revealed their medical records, STDs. They've revealed pictures of these women in the nude. This data dump has done damage to these women, as well as giving them verisimilitude and more detail to colour in the pictures that we have got from the detailed data sets that have been released.
This is interesting. Military veteran and former police officer. To Jeremy Kyle, morning. I won't say good. These photos during the rounds of supposed Andrew kneeling over some unknown female, which isn't a crime. This happens a lot on first aid courses, for example. Ever done one? Thank you. Paul B., a military veteran.
Well, I think both of us have done first aid courses. I don't think that is how I was taught. I don't think the sort of mouth-to-mouth resuscitation that we might be taught was really what we're seeing pictured there. But, you know, I may be entirely mistaken. You may see it very differently to me, Jeremy.
I don't know. Listen, genuinely really appreciate... Oh, just before you go, Clinton's also, I was going to say to you, agreeing to testify to Congress over those Epstein links. That out overnight. That's a bit of a development as well, isn't it? That's pressure for you.
It is, and they've been refusing. They're on the verge of being in contempt of Parliament, essentially, in America for not going. And so I think they had absolutely no choice. My prediction on that is that their memories will be incredibly fallible and they'll not remember very much.
Listen, great to have you. You're going to become my resident human rights lawyer. So when I get my next dreadful migrant story on, you're going to get absolutely battered. And we've loved having you on. I appreciate that. Mark Stevens, human rights lawyer, by far and away the best. I actually got he's all right. Oh, my God, there's more coming out. Sarah Ferguson told Jeffrey Epstein no woman has ever left the royal family with her head intact in email sent after a 2010 cash for access sting, claiming she'd been hung out to dry. 22 minutes to 10. It really is all going on. The murky world of Jeffrey Epstein. You might want to talk about that. You might want to talk about the junior doctors' strike, of course, which they've said, the BMA, we're going on strike. We're hungry. We only had 28.9%. We want to go on strike again. Craig in Staffordshire, as a gay man, I was never included with my girlfriend's behaviours, but they never spared me any details when telling me about them. Mandy may not have joined in with those girls, but he absolutely would have known everything. I think that almost nails it. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. 20 minutes to 10. Christian has had the greatest idea ever. If you've read this story or heard this story today, it's extraordinary. A landlord in Flaundon, Hertfordshire, is pouring pints of a beer called Rachel Thieves. It's called Rachel Thieves. There it is. You can see it on screen. In protest at Chancellor Rachel Reeves' tax hike on pubs. Chris Garzarian, I think that's right, who runs that pub, the Green Dragon in Flaundon, joked that the ale would be very bitter, the most expensive thing on his bar, but when he pulls the tap and you order a pint, guess what comes out? Water. Let's send Samara Gill today down to that pub for a pint of Rachel Reeves. Not that she drinks. Well, she won't be drinking because water. It's fine, isn't it? Junior doctors, that's got you going this morning. Everything's got you going this morning. Junior doctors, a year ago when Labour came to power, the then, he is still, Health Secretary Wes Streeting said, do you know the problem with the Tories? They wouldn't sit round the table and have a conversation. So I've sat round the table with the junior doctors and I'm delighted to say we've agreed a pay increase, not too big, 28.9%. What? And they're coming back to work, which is great. Over the ensuing weeks, it turned out that actually in doing this deal to look good, Streeting had shown massive misjudgment in that he didn't ask for anything in return. Lo and behold, guess what? Overnight, the BMA, slightly left of centre, have voted to keep striking until the summer. They said, we know we've had 28%, but actually it's 20% lower than in real terms, and we need another 20+%. Because you get that, don't you, in the public sector? Imagine going to your boss and going, can I have 28.9%, please, pay rise? If not, I'm going. Go then. And if you are lucky enough to get it, to come back a year late. It's a joke. Here's a man who has his opinions. He used to be on the TV on some show some years ago. Dr. Aaron Ghosh, good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning, Jeremy.
You've always sided with how hard it is to be a doctor. We've always talked about this for years. But I got to tell you, mate, there is little or no public sympathy left. You can carry on talking about, not you, junior doctors, about, you know, oh, in real terms. But you try explaining to hard-working Brits that on the face of it you've got 28.9% and yet nurses have got 5% and you want more. They're going to laugh in your face, Aaron.
Jeremy, it worries me so much, not so much about whether doctors are voting to strike. You know, we all think we're worth more, and I do think you should pay nurses more. I do think doctors do deserve a pay rise. But there has to be a reality that you don't go into medicine for money. And I'm really worried about the next generation of doctors who, in my time as a junior doctor, or now resident doctors, we would never have thought of striking. And that was the time when you were doing 48-hour on-calls, 7 days a week. It was known as a tough job to be a junior doctor, always has been. But you always thought the reward was when you got those senior positions, and then that pay rise would come in, and obviously lifestyle would fit in with it. It is a vocation. It's something that we need to want to do. And I'm worried this next generation of doctors don't see medicine like that. I worry that they see it as a little bit of a cash cow, and that they're thinking we can just keep voting to strike, which should be a last resort. We are putting people at harm. There is no way these doctors will be striking and not putting the NHS backwards or putting patients at risk.
I like what you said about, I'd written down here vocational before you started speaking, but I wrote something that you said, tough on the way up. Maybe we are old. Maybe this generation is, as people say, entitled and expects things too easy. If you look at a benefit system that has become a career choice, maybe that explains some of the problems we've got. But you said something that nobody said before, which is we did the job because we believed in it, but we knew we'd have to put in the hard yards to get to the point where we became... It's like any job, but that's how we all started. Everybody jokes when I tell them my first job. It's ridiculous, right? Stacking bananas in a supermarket, right? But that doesn't happen nowadays. That sort of, you know, that start at the bottom. They expect to start... somebody was telling me a story the other day. Had a guy who lives near them, let's say, in council accommodation. He's got a new car, mobility car. He's got a Sky Dish. Doesn't work, has never worked, isn't injured. And there's nothing wrong with him. And freely knows that he's abusing a system and has no desire to do anything about it. What's happened to that desire? Because we wanted to get on, didn't we? We wanted to make something of our lives and be successful. That's gone, mate. That has to be because society has made it too easy with these sorts of pay rises. These people should work harder, surely.
I absolutely believe 30% is a very, very good pay rise. And if you look at what happened across the border, with Scotland. They've agreed to sit back round the table. They're not taking this type of action because they know how devastating it is for their patients. The BMA really needs to be talking back to these doctors and saying, look, you've actually had, I think, really on paper, a phenomenal pay rise compared to paramedics, compared to nurses, compared to any other healthcare professional. So what you've got here is about continuing those talks. I understand the issues also about jobs as well. I do understand there's a bottleneck with jobs and that a lot of our local candidates aren't getting voted against other doctors coming in from abroad. But this needs to be worked out with placements. This needs to be worked out with a long-term strategy. But voting to strike, it's just an acute way of actually just trying to put the arm around the back of the government's back and forcing them to do something which really isn't going to get us anywhere.
Now, do you think that they should be banned from striking? Many people argue that doctors, like the military aren't allowed to strike, police aren't allowed to strike. Do you think it should be taken off the table for doctors?
I think if they continue with this type of action, I mean, how many strikes have we had? 14? You know, this is now not becoming when it initially started, it was an absolute shock horror. The public support was right behind them. They thought, why would they be doing this unless it was very unjust? Now people are really starting to think, and I am one of them, why are they doing this? This just looks greedy. And I think if they're not careful about taking this type of strike action, it will be taken away from them because the government won't really have many other options to do it.
I think that the argument about the BMA is actually how many of the real doctors it represents, whether it's become too powerful or whether actually, you know, it is too political and it's gone beyond, as you quite rightly say, either its members or what's right for the NHS.
I actually think that this had a 93% support, but only 53% of doctors actually voted for it. And I do worry that actually what's going to happen here is that we're going to have a BMA which is going to be fractured and it's going to be split. And we're going to really have to be very careful about, is it really representing the doctors that it's meant to be representing?
Hi, Jez, says Sarah. What bothers me about doctor strikes is the first oath they talk it to do no harm. I completely agree that Dr. Aaron Ghosh, when I go to the doctor, I want to feel cared for, not feel like an inconvenience because they don't get paid enough. It's absolutely right, isn't it?
Yeah, it absolutely is. And I said this last time. I think as a junior doctor, you really need to think very carefully about if you decide to go on that strike, because I think our first duty of care is to do no harm. And there is no way that you're going to be striking again and make sure that's not going to be happening to your patients.
Well, I'll take a call with you. Davey's in Edinburgh. You're with Dr. Aaron Ghosh and me, Davey. Make it quick. What you got, kiddo?
OK, well, when Labour came into power, the negotiating ploy for the BMA was they wanted 23%. That's fact. They actually got 26%. And now here, a year later, they're looking for 30%.
We know that. Do you think it's... I mean, I said to Aaron, right, I don't mean to be rude, can you imagine anybody in the private sector getting even 10% of what they've got already, man? How does it look to the patients?
Well, it's just incredible. They can get the demand that they want, over and above the demand that they want, and then they come back for more. It was always going to happen with Labour.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
It was always going to happen. They just give in.
I couldn't agree more. Aaron, just one thing. I meant to ask you last time, and this you don't have to be political, you never should. Just to comment on the other thing that Streeting thinks that's acceptable, apart from giving doctors a massive pay rise. It winds me puberty blockers on kids, 200 of them. I mean, that to me sums up this department of it. It's beyond me, mate. As a doctor, just give me your thoughts on that quickly.
It's very controversial. And if you actually look at the evidence, and that's where I think we really need to be, it's neutral, it's not political. The evidence saying is you shouldn't be giving these puberty blockers to children. Children don't really understand the long-term impact. And how could you? You will look back at your times as a teenager, and you know that your body's going through a lot of changes. It is very difficult. And for some teenagers, it can be very scary. But blocking it shouldn't be done. And even doctors who I know work in this area don't agree with this protocol of puberty blockers. It's a very, very controversial area.
Isn't it fair to say, though, that when you go through puberty, that's when you discover about your sexuality and yourself, and to block that is blocking development? To me, it's disgusting. These kids come from really difficult backgrounds, and it's like we're playing with nature. I think it's disgusting, genuinely.
Yeah, it is. It is actually very, very developing, not just physically, but mentally. What mentally changes happens from puberty blockers is huge, and keeping someone immature in that respect, from both their body and mentally and physical well-being, is not a sensible thing to do.
Good man. Lovely to have you on. He is the man, the TV doctor, Dr. Aaron Ghosh. Thank you very much indeed. Troy's in Suffolk. He says junior doctors want all the perks before doing the hard graft and moan about we're burnt out. Start working at 22 to 25 years of age and get a big fat pension at 55. Same as all civil servants. No sympathy. Get to work, do your time and earn your money. 9 minutes to 10. Talk breakfast.
I don't know what's happened to music in Britain. Growing up listening to things like the Beatles, Rolling Stones, even great stuff through the 80s, and all the way through it, I'm thinking, wow, all of this amazing music has come out of the UK. And now, all of our musicians look like they need a damn good bath. What the hell is Ed Sheeran, for crying out loud? He's just a scruff bag. I'm telling you for nothing. Britain, sort out the music scene. We used to be amazing. It's high time we gave our musicians a scrub up and actually chose people who can sing.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. 6 minutes to 10 o'clock. Julia Hartley-Brewer, the Queen of Westminster, here from 10 o'clock, and Ian Collins from 1 o'clock this afternoon. Jez, earlier somebody tried to excuse those photographs of Andrew by saying maybe he was doing CPR training. I've done many, many courses, and you don't use real people. Alison, the NHS wastes millions or even billions on procurement. They keep the heating on all the time and open the windows to waste money, and they are currently spending fortunes on unnecessary building work, even getting something built for huge sums, then ripping it down and rebuilding. This is because they have to use their full budget, or that budget will be reduced. Good God. Margaret is 82 in Brum. I was in hospital twice in 2024, Jez. No corridor waiting, thankfully, but I am so scared that if I have to wait, if I have to go back to hospital again, I would have to wait. So many people concerned about the NHS. Completely agree. Oh, hi, Jez. Love Isabel. Met her at a barbecue in Witney last year. Was Tice with her? Re the Boats. Why hasn't the BBC, with its thousands of journalists and camera crews, got somebody permanently stationed at Dover along our south and the north coast of France so the leftists can get educated about what's happening? Jeff, don't be ridiculous. The BBC don't believe there's a problem with immigration. That's a racist thing. You can't speak like that. Mike's in Durham. Mike, good morning. Just 1 minute on breakfast. How are you?
Hi, Jeremy.
What do you want to say, my friend?
The doctors need to start thinking about what they're doing. It's the same as like 6 years ago when Thatcher got in. The unions were playing silly buggers, and they would go, but it was going on like this. The Thatcher tapped the miners into a strike and tore them apart. The doctors are doing it for them.
Are you in an amusement arcade?
No, it's just another phone going off.
All right. What do you want to say?
The doctors are leading up to where there's going to be no strike action. They're going to be banned.
Sorry. Sorry, mate. Thank you so much indeed. It's slightly difficult. I think somebody it sounded like he was putting stuff through the thing. We completely agree there, Mike in Durham, and thank you for your call. Let's go to Brighton. Paul, you're on Talk Breakfast. Good morning.
Hello, Jeremy.
Hello, mate.
Yeah, Jeremy, before I make my point, if you ever have a career change and go into politics, I'd vote for you tomorrow.
Thank you very much. It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, Mandelson.
Yes.
The guy has always been a Machiavellian man, and I hope he gets his comeuppance at last. It's been a long time coming. How he's got away with it for so long, I do not know.
Do you not feel like me that the establishment will close ranks like it's done on the grooming scandal?
Well, that's the very worrying thing, isn't it? When you see those pictures of Starmer cuddling him as they walk along the corridor, it just makes your blood boil that it's all jobs for the boys, wasn't it?
Do you know what? Yeah, jobs for the boys, but maybe even more than that, as we've been saying all morning. Maybe actually the truth is that it goes further than that because he's got, I don't know, information, or he knows where the bodies are buried, or whatever it is. It's too convenient that somebody so sleazy. I mean, my favourite bit is I've managed to buy an £8 million house, but my boyfriend needs to get 10 grand off Epstein for an osteopathy course. Why don't you give him the 10 grand, or did your house get bought by somebody else? Do you know what I mean?
Well, there's some disparity there, isn't there? You know, as you say, never trusted the man when he was Blair's, puppet, or was it vice versa? We don't know, actually.
Absolutely.
Interesting thought.
Listen, good man.
Good riddance when he goes. Please, let's hope he is at last taken down.
Fingers crossed. Thank you so much indeed. What is it? 3 minutes to 10 o'clock. Julia Hartley-Brewer very, very soon. The Queen of Westminster. Don't forget Ian Collins this afternoon from 1 o'clock. John in Northampton says, I think Keir Starmer's judgment has to be seriously questioned in appointing Mandelson to a position where he was trusted with sensitive information. We're not questioning Keir Starmer's judgment, are we?
Absolutely not. Good morning to you, Mr. Jeremy.
Good morning.
How is your son?
Just amazing. I mean, he's warm weather training to be a very successful golfer in Portugal. The weather was awful, right?
Yeah. Well, good. I'm glad the weather's awful, so I don't want other people having better weather than us.
We played 3 rounds and he beat me by 58 shots. I mean, he's literally... It's actually really frightening,
I love that. It's nice to have a little bit of light relief. I'm very excited about
I said, don't worry, I'll have lessons and get better. And he's 16, he went, you're never going to get better, you're going to get
That's what's
worse.
happening to me. Do you think Lord Madison's ever going to get better? The interview he's done with Katie Balls at the Times, some of which was some words after all this happened. Again, he's the victim. Yes. He's been unlucky. Yes. All these things keep happening to him. Well, my question to everyone today is, do you trust there's going to be a proper police and proper investigation? Or is there going to be another establishment cover-up? I'm sorry, I don't believe that a lot of people didn't know exactly what was going on with both Andrew, with Mandelson. Everyone knew, or people who mattered knew, and no one cared.
You're missing the point, though. As a gay man, he didn't know. But he is stood in his underpants with a semi-naked woman in Epstein's palace.
I never knew that you could just play the gay card like that.
It's extraordinary. And